10. And number 9.
We've taken a position so far, and the candidates have, through the process, a few have not, on basically Medicare for all, which is we're going to eliminate 150 million people's health care, and we're going to provide health care for people that just come over the border. That is an untenable position for the general election.
If we could find the animal, we can capture the animal. If we could find the animal, we can capture the animal.
Okay, that song is intense. What? Was it that funny?
It's like firing me up, man.
Oh, awesome. Well, good. All right, everybody, how's it going? Yes, we're live today. Happy New Year's Eve, last day of the year. Your Ben Joravsky show for Tuesday, December 31st is just moments away. But before we get into that, we need to thank the following unions for jumping on board and sponsoring this program. Hey, sponsor us in 2020 as well, huh? First up, it's the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers, Local 126 in District 8. Not Aerosmith. The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 9, and the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 150. A giant thank you to those unions for jumping on board and sponsoring this program. You guys are awesome. And, of course, today's Ben Joravsky show for Tuesday, December 31st, is brought to you in part by our dear friends at the Chicago Federation of Labor. Benny J, hit him with that song of the day.
Well, I had a song of the day, but I forgot how it goes. So I was thinking one that I do know.
Okay.
Because this is all part of something that's coming up. This is, what do they call it? What?
A tease.
It's a tease. In radio, they call it a tease.
Yeah.
Could it be I'm falling in love with you, baby? You know that song, Dave? No. Anybody know that song?
I know that song.
You know that song?
I'm falling in love.
Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm. I'm the only one who doesn't know it.
Yeah, that's because you're a millennial. It's the Spinners, man.
The Spinners. The Ben Joravsky show starts now. It is Tuesday, December 31st, New Year's Eve, and live from the Chicago Sun-Times Chicago Reader Studio on Racine Avenue, this is the Ben Joravsky Show. Today on the program, we're talking reefer with Lisa Solomon of the Chicago Reader. It's even more reefer talk with writer and Ben's dear friend Milo Samardzija. And no, we're not smoking reefer. And now your host, Chicago Reader columnist, Ben Joravsky.
Hello, everybody. Ben Joravsky here. We're calling this What a Year It Was Tuesday, and here's why. Great weekend. You have a good weekend, D?
Yeah, I had a great weekend. Tuesday.
I had a great weekend. I just want to say this. My kids were in town. They've left to go back to their places. But when they were in town, they did this huge party at my house. They do it all the time when they come in at Christmas time. And tons of people came over. All their old friends came in. And my job, I was given a job. You know what my job was?
Oh, I know your job, but tell everybody.
I was the coat man.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, Dad, you're the guy who stands at the door and collects coats. Actually, you don't stand at the door. When the doorbell goes ding dong, you go to the door and you open up. Hello, hi, welcome to my home. Let me take your coat.
Well, thanks for telling everybody what a doorbell sounds like. I'm sure they needed help with that.
Wait, you didn't know what the spinners were?
Oh, yeah.
I'm just helping you out a little bit.
Doorbell and the spinners.
How can a guy not know what the spinners? But you know what? That's all part of the show. What you call it, D? Teasing. We're going to get to all this music stuff in a little bit. Anyway, I'm the coat man. I stand at the front door. I greet the people when they come in. I take their coats. I learned something about human nature, D.
What's that?
When you stand at the front door and you collect the coats, there's different types of people in the world. I know you know that, but I'm just telling you that.
Okay.
There's different types of people in the world, and you learn this when you take their coats. For instance, there's the paranoid type. The paranoid type is when you go, let me take your coat. And they look at you and they're like, I don't know if I want to give you my coat. I think I want to hold on to my coat because I'm afraid that if I give you my coat, I won't get the coat back. That's the paranoid type, D. And you learn that when you go to take their coat. You can see their little brains going as they look for options. Some go, no, I think I'll wear it. And then, of course, me, I argument at any time. Well, it's hot in the house. Why would you wear your coat? Like a kid I went to grade school with who would wear his coat in the school. No, I think I'll wear my coat. That's okay. I'll wear. And sometimes it's a woman and they clutch their coat. I'll be like, give me that coat. Anyway, then there's the one that they're like figuring things out. So they see there's hooks next to the door. I know I'm just going to put my coat on the hook. And I'm like, okay, you can put your coat on the hook, but I'm just telling you, there's a chance that someone will take that coat. I'm just saying that. And then, then they start weighing, and what's the odds of me losing my coat, giving it to this guy or put it on the hook? So that's the paranoid type. And then again, there is the
great end of the year talk here. Coat talk.
Then there's the Zaza Gabor type, which is the exact opposite of the paranoid type. Zaza Gabor was just like, man, I don't know if anybody in this room knows Zaza Gabor.
I know who that is. Yeah.
Everybody in the room knows who
yeah.
Zaza. Anyway, Zaza Gabor, which you go on the Johnny Carson show way back when. Hello, darling.
I thought it was Zsa Zsa Gabor.
All right, Zaza. There's a basketball player named Zaza.
Pachulia.
Wow. By the way, Zaza Pachulia, very good for knowing that.
And by the way, that's Joshua.
Joshua, who will be on the show.
Joshua Pachulia.
Yeah. Zaza Pachulia looks very much like our guest, Milo Samardzija, will be here at 2 o'clock hour. When he comes in, go. Try not to call him Zsa Zsa. Anyway, Zaza Gabor says, oh, darling, just take the coat. So they're sort of like, oh, the servant, take the coat. So it's the paranoid type, who clutches the coat. And then the Zaza type. Anyway, what was I talking about?
Coats.
Oh, yeah. It's the end of the year, folks. That's what I really wanted to talk about. These parties always happen at the end of the year. I'm the coat man. And a lot of great stories. We're going to be going through the stories of the year, the great, what a year it was. And, D, when I was looking at the list of stories that we're going to run through, the also general categories, taxes, race relations, politics, animal stories, always animal stories. Larry Lujak, there was a disc jockey many years ago named Larry Lujak, and he did a segment on a show called Animal Stories. He would tell funny. The thing I liked about Larry Lujak, who's the first guy I ever known who would make paper sounds like this. I learned that from,
Oh, wow. What's that guy's name?
Larry Lujak.
Wow, you're no Larry Lujak. You just ripped the paper.
I ripped my paper. Oh, it's the 2010, the decade review. Anyway, it's got every front page of it.
Coat talk.
And corruption stories. And, of course, reefer stories. Lots of marijuana stories in 2019 and going into 2020 because reefer is now legal. Or will be legal within 24 hours, right, Lisa? Our next guest is the expert on all things reefer. It'll be legal in the next year, and so everybody's talking about it. And I really enjoy this immensely because for years and years and years, pretty much everybody smoked marijuana, but nobody talked about it. They pretended they didn't. do it because it was illegal. So we all sort of dedicated ourselves to this lie being that we didn't smoke it, we didn't know anybody that smoked it, we didn't want to be around it because it was illegal and it was inappropriate, and like parents wouldn't talk to their kids about it. But meanwhile, they'd go in the backyard and do it themselves and then pretend they wouldn't do it themselves. And then they'd be like, if I could just tie the world of sports thing. I remember hearing conversations like an athlete would get busted for smoking reefer. He'd flunk a drug test. And then I would hear these guys on the radio talking about how immature he is because he smoked reefer. Well, his mature. Should we give him a contract? Let's go. We got Butch and Berwin. Butch, what do you think? A guy like that who's smoking reefer, I don't think he should get a contract. That's Butch and Berwin. That's a good point. But I think he's grown up since then. And then like the athletes, their handlers would come up with a statement saying, "I've learned my mistake." Meanwhile, everybody, like Butch and Berwin, the disc jockey, the talk show host, would be smoking reefer. We lived utter hypocrisy, folks, for years and years and years on this subject. And now, mercifully, at least that one part of the hypocrisy has ended, and we're going to have legal reefer. And so maybe they'll stop testing. I think they still test athletes for marijuana.
MLB just announced they're going to stop testing. The other sports still testing, but I think the NFL will stop soon.
Lisa Solomon, we're going to bring her on. This woman knows more about marijuana than anyone. Which sport? MLB? Baseball?
Yeah, baseball just announced.
All right. Now, baseball, it's funny you should say that. Baseball to me would be the one that would be most concerned about marijuana. You smoke a joint, go up and try to hit a ball, ball's coming at you. That's just me speaking. I would have a really hard time with it. Just a lineman in football, what difference does it make if he's smoking marijuana? I don't know. Football's a crazy sport, and not the least of which is that they make marijuana illegal. Anyway, what the point about marijuana is, it's a very hard year. We've so much violence in our country, so much corruption in our country, strained relationships are on the national level. I could go on and on. I just realized, I was reading a story. I owe all this just talking about the national defense budget is $736 billion. That's billion with a B. Congress passed that a couple weeks ago, signed by Donald Trump. $736 billion in 1 year. And we're worried about
that's billion with a B.
That is correct. Thank you very much, Lori Lightfoot. And we're worried about whether we have enough money for nurses in schools and stuff. $736 billion. That's a lot of money. 10% of that is, I'm not that good in math, $730 billion. $73 billion. That's 10% of what we're spending on 1 year, just 1 year on military. That would be more than enough to fund every freaking school in the country. Anyway, so a little reefer will go a long way in dealing with the miseries, the pain, the violence, and the insanity of the world. Let's hope the next year is better than this year. All right, folks? All right, we got a great show. To help get on to the next year, we have Lisa Solomon. She's already spoken up. She's the reader's marijuana.
She's not smoking up in here, you know what I mean?
Oh, that
pretty good,
Dennis has got a million.
Happy New Year, everybody.
I'm sorry, Lisa.
The air is clear in here.
Let's call it Cannabis. The cannabis expert. Reefer is an old name from the 60s.
You're going to call it Reefer every single time.
Milo Samardzija, one of the great writers in the city of Chicago, a dear friend of mine. The man knows more about marijuana, reefer. He knows about it from when he first smoked it in the 60s. I figured with marijuana legal in the 21st century, I'd bring on someone who's been smoking it since the 60s. Milo Samardzija being here. He's also a great writer, very funny guy, and who'll be talking about all the stuff of the day. Joshua Smizer de Leon, a surprise guest. He's in the studio. He's the host of the, how do I pronounce it?
Paseo Podcast.
Paseo Podcast. And he's going to be chiming in from time to time on all kinds of issues. But the big thing that he's going to have to deal with, we have a huge playlist showdown trivia contest coming up. The winner will get a blue Mustang. And
no, we're not doing that. No one wins anything.
I saw it.
I know.
Here it is.
Oh, perfect.
Here's the blue.
Oh, thanks so much.
For those listening, he's got a toy car, blue toy car.
Lisa's like, gang, I want a car.
Make it work.
Yeah. So anyway, plenty of talk ahead with Joshua Boy. He doesn't know what this little trick I have up my sleeve here. It has to do, I'll give you one example. One of the songs, I already sang it, Could Be I'm Falling in Love, and this other song, High Hopes, which I had never heard of in my entire life, by a group called Panic at the Disco, which I had never heard of. I know Lisa's like, you never heard of that? Anyway, so we're going to get into that, the great music trivia showdown with Joshua Smizer de Leon. But before we do any of that, the man, the myth, the legend, the pride and joy of Alton, Illinois. Back home, they call him Dr. D with the news.
How's it going, everybody? I'm Dennis. Never been a doctor in my life. All right. If you can hear this, you made it. The year 2020 begins tomorrow. Way to stay alive, everybody. And hey, here's something not that original at all. To celebrate the new year, today and today only on the Ben Joravsky Show, we're having a top 10 end of the year countdown.
That's correct.
And since it's kind of what we do,
I love Mueller.
and since it's kind of what we do, let's make it a top 10 stories in Chicago and or Illinois countdown. And Ben, let's not F around here, all right? No more coat talk.
Oh, no.
Coat talk's over.
The different types of human beings that you can learn from collecting their coats. The paranoid type. All right.
All right, get it out now.
And the Zaza type.
All right, coat talk's over.
And the calculating type.
Okay, how about we say we get right to it, starting with number 10. What do you say?
All right, let's get down to
All right,
business.
let's do it.
By the way, time out. Where's my Mueller report?
Okay, get over the Mueller report. We're doing the top 10.
Oh, sorry.
Number 10.
All right. Number 10. Oh, I got to play this piece of audio. It's going to be a little bit of sloppy here. All right, here's number 10.
Don't you think voters should get to decide whether to change Illinois' tax system?
This is fair and necessary. It's time for change. Let's make our tax system fair.
Yes, our number 10 story happened on May 27th, 2019, when Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker's graduated income tax plan got on the 2020 November ballot. The following comes from the Chicago Sun-Times and Tina Sfondeles, landing Governor J.B. Pritzker a huge Memorial Day win. The Illinois House, along strictly partisan lines, approved a November 2020 ballot question that will ask voters if they wish to change the state's income tax structure from a flat tax to the graduated tax that Pritzker is championing. The flat tax rate has been part of the state's constitution since 1970, a year after the income tax was first enacted. But in a historic move, the House voted 73-44 to let voters decide next year, aka tomorrow, whether to amend the Constitution to allow for the graduated rate under which high earners would pay more. The proposed constitutional amendment, which passed the Senate on May 1st, does not require the governor's approval. It does, however, need the support of either 60% of those voting on the question or a simple majority of those voting in the election overall. Since then, the Pritzker administration donated $5 million of his own money. By the way, in case you didn't know, he's filthy rich, guys. But Pritzker donated $5 million of his own money to a ballot initiative committee earlier this month. The committee solely exists to, quote, support the proposed graduated income tax amendment to the Illinois Constitution. And boy, you got to hand it to the governor on titling this committee and campaign. We've already seen a few ads about it. Vote yes for fairness. What are you supposed to do? Vote opposed to fairness? Well, you're not for fairness. But putting $5 million of your own money into your own plan, is that fair? Listen, I couldn't tell you. But regardless, it's J.B. Pritzker's graduated tax plan getting on the ballot, our number 10 Chicago and or Illinois story of 2019.
I'm with JB 100% on this one. And listen, it's just dropping the bucket, that $5 million that he kicked in, because the other side's going to be ponying up a lot of money too. And the advantage is with the other side. This is the 10th story. It could be the most important story. Of course, it's been one of our top stories in Illinois for the last, will be 3 years, because we used to talk about this in 2018. This was a big issue in the gubernatorial race. I guess you could divide the world into two types. People like me and people like the editorial writers at the Chicago Tribune. We're sort of like on different sides in this issue. The Chicago Tribune is railing against the fair tax. I support the fair tax. The Tribune sort of believes every man or woman for him or herself. It's a jungle out there. Let's get what we can. F you if you can't survive. I'm more into the shared sacrifice camp. If we're going to share sacrifice, I think it's only appropriate that the wealthier people pay a bigger portion of their money to pay for all the obligations we have, because let's get this straight, folks. They have more money to give. And when they pay a little bit more in taxes, they have more money left over. It's as basic and obvious as the sun rising in the east every day. But it's going to be a tough sale. There's just a knee-jerk reaction that people have just in general to paying taxes. Even if they're not paying taxes and somebody else is, they still have a knee-jerk reaction to it. You got to get 60% of the vote to have this pass. And that referendum will happen in November during the presidential election. So a lot of attention will be diverted onto the Trump versus whoever is running against Trump on the Democratic side. So it's going to be very difficult for Pritzker. He's probably going to have to pony up more money than that $5 million to get it done. And like I said, the other side's not messing around. They pretty much own the Chicago Tribune, so they're going to have them as a platform to broadcast against this fair tax. They're like the Tribune's already blaming taxes for people leaving Illinois. There's a lot of reason why people leave Illinois. I would say the temperature and the weather has something to do. Maybe legalizing reefer will get more people to stay in Illinois and deal with the weather. So anyway, I would like to see a reduction in property taxes if possible. That's a reason, a motivating factor why people are leaving Chicago. And if you can raise the income tax, if you can make a progressive rate, then that'd be the first step to cutting the more regressive taxes. At least that's the principle. That's the idea. Whether it actually happens in practice, I don't know. Whether it's going to raise enough money for utter fairness that I would like to see, I'm not certain. But I do know this: it's a step in the right direction. So this is not only an important story, D, from 2019 and 2018. It'll be a big story in 2020, and we're leading right up into the November election.
So there you are, number 10. Moving on.
I love this music.
Number 9.
Oh, yeah. Feeling this music, man.
I've seen a whole lot of catfish, some turtles. No gators yet, though.
Yes, number 9 is when that damn alligator was in the Humboldt Park Lagoon.
That hipster dude, I've seen a lot.
Oh, bro, man. I saw a turtle. It was a Ninja Turtle. All right. Number 9 is when that damn alligator was in the Humboldt Park Lagoon, July 8th, 2019, a time when there was literally no local news to talk about. Lori Lightfoot was only in her second month as mayor, so still too new to really agitate anyone, and we all know that eventually happened. We'll get there, guys. We're at number 9. But there was no local news, so when this story broke, all of Chicago media treated it like a godsend. CNN was even talking about it. But Block Club Chicago got the scoop with their July 9th article. Yes, there's an alligator living in the Humboldt Park Lagoon. The alligator sighting started Tuesday morning. A long gator was cruising along the calm waters of the Humboldt Park Lagoon. Witnesses didn't quite believe their eyes, and there was some initial skepticism. But Tuesday evening, Chicago police confirmed an official sighting and announced that plans are in place to catch it and give it a checkup. After that night, and who would have predicted me saying this at the beginning of 2019? Chicago, Illinois turned into Jacksonville, Florida. We had a good old-fashioned Florida gator chase on our hands, and boy, did it get weird. Here's the Chicago Tribune headline, July 10th. Humboldt Park Gators search stretches into second day with traps set and volunteer circling lagoon. Enter Gator Bob.
If we could find the animal, we can capture the animal.
Yes, Alligator Bob.
Wait, which one was Gator Bob? I always
The
get him
first
mixed up.
guy.
Oh, the first guy. Okay.
Alligator Bob, a volunteer who declined to have his full name
That's
used,
right, yeah.
and who works with Chicago officials to capture wayward exotic animals, was sent out to Humboldt Park to catch that damn alligator. And it didn't take long for us to understand why he declined to have his full name used. Because he wasn't that good.
Ah, come on. See?
What? He didn't even catch it.
Come on. That's so mean.
Here's the Chicago Tribune headline, July 11th. Alligator at Humboldt Park Lagoon evading capture for third day. July 12th, Humboldt Park alligator stays out of sight as effort to capture beast enters fourth day. They called it a beast. This went on for 4 days. Block Club Chicago eventually started selling alligator t-shirts. People were coming from all over the city to see it, and Alligator Bob could not catch this alligator. So they eventually tell Alligator Bob to get lost, and in comes this guy Alligator Rob. We're not making this up. Alligator Rob, real skinny guy with a beard.
What's his name, Rob? I thought it was Ed.
Oh, jeez Louise.
Alligator Ed
name's
sounds
Rob.
better.
Real skinny guy with a beard comes all the way from Florida, and in less than 24 hours,
gets a great
on
name.
July 16th, the alligator was captured and finally out of the Humboldt Park Lagoon. Boy, what a story. It's number 7. Number 9, that damn alligator in the lagoon.
All right, a lot. You can learn a lot from the gator story. I called it Gator Gate, as you recall. First of all, animal stories. I said earlier, we love animal stories. Great diversion. A little tribute to Larry Lujek.
Don't rip the paper this time.
Great Larry Lujek with his animal stories. Number 2, learned a lot about hipsters. I'm kind of new to the whole hipster thing, D. I just say that. Hipsters loved this story. Hipsters were just like, I think it was synonymous. I think it like the area itself, a lot of hipsters are moving into the area.
I've seen a whole lot of catfish, some turtles. No gators yet, though.
Exhibit A right there. And
he's pumped for 2020, by the way,
like,
that legal reefer.
Yeah. Some parallels to the legal reefer. They love this story. All right, they just love the gator story. And let's give a shout out to Jen Sabella, Block Club. They were all over this story. There's no truth to the rumor that Jen Sabella put the alligator in there and then started covering it. Jen, I got you covered on that one. No truth to that rumor. But they did kill that story. And then there was, you read the Tribune headlines. Mm-hmm. We had a great fun comparing Tribune headlines to Sun-Times headlines. And I just got to say, my beloved Bright one.
Yeah, and I realized, though, that it kind of paid off, though, like towards the end when you're doing these end-of-the-year countdowns, though. Like, there's very, very to the point on these headlines.
The
So
Tribune
I like the
headlines,
ones,
yeah. But that sometimes when it was like Gator, Gator, Gator.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I would then sing the song Gator Got Your Granny. And it was a really good week. Saw a lot about human nature in this story. The way in which the city turned against Alligator Bob. You know, like he couldn't get the gator. So everybody's like, then they love alligator. Are you sure it's
Rob,
not
Ed? I don't know where you got that from.
I just kind of like Alligator Ed. Alligator Ed from, everybody, we love him. He got to throw out the ball at the Cubs game. Why didn't Bob get Bob was out there, for like a week trying to get that game.
The dude did it in less than 24 hours.
And then it told you a lot about the media. My beloved media reporters, they always felt compelled to put the parenthetical. We couldn't get his real name, like Alligator Gator Bob. We don't know his real name. He won't give us his, like we're digging for it. But they would have done anything to find his real name is Billy Bob. But they couldn't get it. So great story. Kept us amused for 1 week.
By the way, sorry, Pat Rod weighed in. I forgot to put that in the news. His name was Chance the Snapper.
Chance the Snapper. I think the Bright one came up with that. The Sun-Times came up with Chance.
I think it was Block Club Chicago, right?
All right, Jen Sabella. Another shout out to Jen Sabella.
I don't know who came up with it.
The editor of Block Club. Anyway, no truth to the rumor that Jen Sabella put that gator in the lagoon, all right?
All right, time for number 8.
Gator got your granny.
Number 8.
All right, I don't have any audio for this one. Our number 8 story also happened in July 6th. It's Confederate Railroad Gate. The time when country band Confederate Railroad was booked to play in the DuQuoin State Fair, but then was pulled from the event by the Illinois governor because of their use of the Confederate flag in their band logo. Ben, you recall Confederate Railroad Gate, don't you?
Yeah, we talked about it a lot on the show.
What were your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't blame them for pulling them. I mean, the Confederate flag is a symbol of slavery and people who went to war to keep slavery. I mean, it's kind of offensive. Don't you think? I think you could take kind of out of the sentence. I mean, slavery, people. It's like, don't we have any standards?
The band's logo features a steam locomotive flying Confederate flags. The flag has been criticized as a racist emblem of slavery and segregation, but supporters say it represents history.
Slavery was in our history. We can't teach it in the schools, but it's okay to celebrate it with a flag.
Well, they're good musicians.
What different? Can you name one song by them.
Oh, yeah, I'm going down the railroad. I don't know. I got nothing. A spokeswoman for J.B. Pritzker, Emily Bittner, said that the administration prohibits using state resources to, quote, promote symbols of racism. A lot of Illinoisans disagreed and challenged the governor. Pritzker responded to those who questioned why Snoop Dogg is still performing at the state fair in Springfield. Snoop's 2017 album, Make America Crip Again, features a cartoon of a dead body with a toe tag that says Trump. There is an enormous difference between the political satire, the discussion by a single artist, his political views, and the representation of truly millions of people being enslaved. Hundreds of thousands of people being killed under the banner of treason, essentially, Pritzker told reporters following an unrelated news conference. This is Pritzker. Remember, it was the banner of the Confederate flag that the assassin of Abraham Lincoln, our favorite son, the son of Illinois, was murdered. He continued. It's our number 8 story, Confederate Railroad Gate.
I was with Pritzker on that one 100%. And, it's 2 for 2. I'm with Pritzker 100%. It's not easy for me to say that when it comes to Illinois governors, but I was with them 100% on that one. And, and then they threw Snoop Dogg, some downstate rep. What about Snoop Dogg? Always trying to find something that gets them off the hook. Like, well, liberals are racist too. What about Snoop Dogg? Comparing Snoop Dogg to like 300 years of slavery is ridiculous.
All right, so we're going to pause it right there. We're going to continue our countdown.
I really like the countdown.
Before we get out of here, we'll go through number 6, and what we plan to do is, as a bonus, a Benny J bonus interview, the top 5 Chicago and or Illinois stories of 2019. You'll have to download it at both Chicago Sun-Times, Chicago Reader websites, or wherever else you download your favorite podcast. But like I said, before today's show ends, we will find out number 7 and number 6. But, we got people that we booked to talk on the show, all right? This isn't just some countdown show. We got plenty more content to come, so stick around, everybody. It's the Ben Joravsky Show, live from the Chicago Sun-Times. The Ben Joravsky Show is supported by Northwestern University's part-time master's program in literature and liberal studies. Students learn from dynamic and diverse faculty as they build advanced skills for critical analysis, writing, and research. Evening classes are held on Northwestern's Evanston and Chicago campuses. The spring quarter application deadline is January 15th. Learn more at sps.northwestern.edu/masters. Read the Chicago Reader to get up to speed on what's what in Chicago. Culture, food, arts and entertainment, weekly concert listings, weekly event listings, the environment, travel. I can continue, but you get the point. And for all of you Chicago political junkies, raw weekly columns on real city politics from Maya Dukmasova and our very own Ben Joravsky. The Chicago Reader, free to the public in newsstands throughout the city and online at chicagoreader.com. Read it now and be a more informed Chicagoan.
Hey, everybody, what you're about to hear are the piano stylings of Jeff Manuel. Man, listen to Jeff go. Jeff Manuel has been playing piano around Chicago for years. He's played for conventions, for celebrities, played in basement bars with blues bands. He's played at prestigious social clubs, fine restaurants, and in the intimacy of private homes. Book Jeff Manuel at jeffemanuelpianist.com. Don't worry, I'll spell his name at the end of this commercial. You know what Chicago Magazine said? They said that Jeff Manuel is, quote, as comfortable with Chopin as he is with Cole Porter. He's excellent and his performance is joyous. He offers an elegant stream of compositions and interpretations that entertains the mind but won't hurt the ears. To hear more of Jeff Manuel's work and to book Jeff for your next event, go to jeffmanuelpianist.com. I'm going to spell it out for you, people. J-E-F-F. M as in Mary, A, N as in Nancy, UELPIANIST.com. Take it away, Jeff Manuel.
Hey, commercial break over. Welcome back to the Ben Joravsky Show. Live from the Chicago Sun-Times.
It's Reefer Day on the Ben Joravsky Show. It is indeed Reefer Day. Actually, it's the day before Reefer Day. Tomorrow, marijuana becomes legal in the state of Illinois. A lot of people waiting a long time for that, so we brought in Lisa Solomon. She probably knows more about marijuana, or cannabis, as they call it. What? You know what, Lisa? My first question to you will be, what's the difference between reefer and cannabis?
Well, reefer and cannabis, same thing. My kids in their 20s say, it's weed, Mom. Stop calling it pot or cannabis. It's weed.
Oh.
So to get with today's times, you can call it weed.
Okay.
But marijuana is a term that was created decades ago to throw men of color in jail.
All right. Hold that thought, because that's an unbelievable thought to take the deep dive. I want to do two things. One, before we take the deep dive with Lisa Solomon on marijuana, cannabis, reefer, weed, I just want to say one thing that eluded me. I got a tip from a little tipster named Pat. It is a certain person's birthday today. A certain person was born on this day about 20 years ago.
That's correct.
His name is Dr. D. Ladies and
I am
gentlemen,
20.
happy birthday to the young man from Alton, Illinois. Back home in Alton, they call him Dr. D, but a lot of people also call him White Lightning.
No one calls me that. I'm Dennis. How's it going?
All right. Happy birthday, young man.
Thanks.
I guess I knew it, forgot it, and the young Pat Whalen just called me up.
Wait, you forgot something. Get out of here.
It's all that reefer I smoked back in the 70s.
Yeah, it's my birthday.
All right. Well, happy birthday, man. So
Thanks.
as a birthday present, Lisa Solomon is going to give you a lot of legal weed. How about that?
I wouldn't have turned it down.
I like the
Gotta wait till
illegal
tomorrow.
stuff. Yeah, right. It's not legal till tomorrow, okay? So stop smoking it. Anyway, let's turn our attention back to Lisa Solomon. Lisa, before we take that dive into why they call it marijuana so they could lock up people of color, which let's not forget that, the war on drugs. As we celebrate we're really celebrating like the first phase of the end of the war on drugs.
Yes, the first phase.
The first phase. Tell people who you are, what you do, and how you know so much about reefer.
Okay, so right now I'm doing cannabis events for the Chicago Reader. We've got a great lineup of events coming for 2020. The first one, you won't see it online for another week or two, but is Wednesday, February 5th. It's at the Creative Arts Incubator 2112 on the north side of the city. We're going to have a lot of exhibitors, maybe some CBD vendors, because the cannabis companies can't sell outside of the dispensaries. But they will be there with lots of empty packaging and lots of great swag. There is so much stuff. You can get jars to keep your bud in. If you're watching, I'm holding some up. Things to keep your shatter in, grinders. They got everything
Wait,
there
time
for
out.
you.
Shatter?
I'm gonna let someone else explain that. I'm not an expert on shatter. It's a highly concentrated form. So
I'm unfamiliar with that too. Shatter.
Man.
Dab, whatever.
Oh, dabs and all that? Yeah.
I don't even know what you got.
It's like smoking.
Could you guys speak English?
I feel like this lady went into my living room and just brought all the stuff from it.
All right.
So we're doing a lot of events, and then April 3rd and 4th, save the date. There's going to be a huge cannabis convention downtown Chicago at the Sheridan, the Illinois Cannabis Convention. An operator came to the Reader, asked us to partner with them to be their local partner. They've done 30 conventions in 8 different states. They know what they're doing. They've always done B2B. They came to us, said, will you be our partner? We said yes, but we want to add consumer-facing programming. So what that means is we're going to have doctors, pharmacists, all sorts of medical experts come in, home grow experts, so people can learn how they can grow their own plants for those who can legally grow in 2020. We're going to have cooking experts. You can learn how to make your own tinctures at home. And we'll talk more about what a tincture is in a few minutes. But so that is going to be amazing. We're doing a low ticket price for consumers. That'll be posted online next week. It's NECANN, Illinois, NECANN, Illinois. Google that. It'll come right up.
Okay, very good. All right, now, Lisa, let's get back to that marijuana question. It's a political show. You know I can't avoid political topics. Marijuana was a name that was given to this substance in order to justify locking up people of color. Take the deep dive. Explain what you meant by that.
Well, they actually started calling it marijuana to make it sound like a dirty Mexican thing that was being brought up to our country. And It's prohibition. That's what it is. So there's a movie I'm going to recommend to everyone. It's on Netflix. It's one of my favorite cannabis films. It's called Grass. There's more than one grass. So make sure it's the one from 1999, narrated by Woody Harrelson. It's 2 hours. It is riveting. It takes you through everything. I think it was Nixon who had 83 different medical experts, mostly physicians, do research. He said, I want you to give me the proof that marijuana is dangerous and bad. And every single group came back and said, not only can we not find anything dangerous about it, we think there are some medicinal benefits. He, was it Anslinger, tried to confiscate all the reports. Watch the movie in case I'm getting any of that confused. But they tried to confiscate every single printed copy because, of course, didn't have the internet back then. So the only copies that existed were in print because they didn't want the public to see that.
They didn't want the public to see that because why? Because
there were medical benefits. It was good. There was nothing bad about it. It's a beautiful plant. And if you look up and can find old copies of like Merck manuals and physician desk references and pharma catalogs, you will see there were almost 100 tinctures. So a tincture is an oil made from the cannabis plant. There were almost 100 on the market that were legal. And during this time of prohibition, when they were trying to schedule it as a Schedule I drug, which they succeeded in doing, the AMA, the American Medical Association, actually pleaded with the government not to do that. They said, we do not have other medicines to treat some of these conditions. You're taking away medicines from people that need them. A little known fact, a large percentage of those were female medical issues. So what did these white men in power care if the women were going to have horrible cramps, and other things? So. Yeah. It was prohibition, and there's another cannabis movie I love. So write this down. That one was Grass, Woody Harrelson, 1999. There's a movie that came out late 2018 called Weed the People. Ricki Lake is the executive producer. She doesn't appear in the film, but she did so much. This was her passion project. It's also available on Netflix. And this movie tracks some pediatric cancer patients. Their journey, it talks about their chemo, their traditional Western medicine treatments, and then what happened with cannabis. I don't want to say too much other than have the tissues ready. I've seen it 6 times, and I go through lots and lots of tissues every time. It pulls at your heartstrings, not only seeing what these kids go through, but to start to understand how many lives have been lost due to prohibition of cannabis.
Now, what do you think changed so that we are at the moment where we're at a day before the legalization of marijuana? I talk a lot about this, Lisa, back in the early part of this decade when I first started writing about the injustice of the war on drugs and how black people get locked up for something that everybody does. And there was just either indifference or apathy or hostility or fear on the issue. Politicians didn't want to talk about it. As recently as 2014, Rahm Emanuel, when he announced he was running for re-election, said he was absolutely opposed to the legalization of marijuana and that he did not want to ever have to depend on marijuana taxes to balance the budget. So that's how recent this is. Now, all of a sudden, here we are. It seems as in 2020, it's going to be legal. It's like a ball going down a hill. All of a sudden, it was like going up the hill, now just rolling down the hill. What changed that got us to this point so quickly?
It could be all the research coming out of Europe and Israel on the benefits of cannabis as a medicine. That was one thing that helped. A lot of people, the social justice, social equity people, were more comfortable speaking up, and they were actually being heard by some people. That still, as you were saying, we're at stage 1 of that, but there are some wonderful things in the works, and I know Illinois and Chicago, they're really struggling with how to make sure that equity piece actually happens as it was designed to. The state legislators that worked on this legalization bill put a lot of effort into it. So now it's a question of, will it play out the way it's supposed to? There were people saying, people were just checking off boxes and asking people to come in as supposed partners, but not really giving them a share of the business, that were people of color or that had these felony convictions. So they're really trying to look into that to make sure that it's fair and that those people are equity partners in the business and that they have an active role, not just that their name was thrown on the application, but that they are contributing members. So let's hope that happens. Go.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think another layer to that is just a heightened awareness of the effects the war on drugs has had on communities of color. There was I think their Nixon administration, it was like their director of policy, one of his aides, like in the mid-90s, came out and said this was a specific way for the administration, for Nixon to take on his political opposition, mainly black and brown people and critics of the Vietnam War. So it was a way to kind of suppress that vote. They could stay in power, and then that comes out in the 90s, and I think there's just been since then a heightened awareness of just the effects that war on drugs has had on people. So you've seen that shift.
Yeah, it's taken a long time. That, Joshua, what you just described has been the case for 50 years, and it's as though overnight, relatively speaking, people came face to face with it. Because I'm telling you, when I would ask, I talk about this so much, but I can't get over this. I remember so many conversations with politicians back in around 2011, and I would mention these things to him, Joshua, that you just alluded to, the unfairness of it all, the inequity of all, the historical way in which it was used by get tough on crime politicians to justify locking people up. And when I would talk about that to people, politicians, they go, yeah, but I'm not comfortable talking about it. It was as though they didn't know what to say because we had bought in, and I think this is a larger problem that I won't burden you with, Lisa, but there's a larger problem where people on the left, my beloved people on the left, my beloved Democrats, just sort of buy into a worldview that the Republicans put out. This is all about moving the country to the right. If you move further to the right, the Democrats generally follow the Republicans to the right, and they betray their people, their constituents, on so many issues of importance to them. So this is just one of them. So if the Republicans have claimed this war on drugs position, an absolute position that we're going to get tough on all the criminals and the drug dealers and the thugs and the hoods, and the Democrats just don't want to look weak, move to the right, and now all of a sudden we have this indefensible war on marijuana that people are even afraid to talk about as recently as 6 or 7 years ago.
Yeah. And the penalties are just so different. If you're a white kid in a nice suburb, you can get caught with a bunch of weed versus being a person of color on the south or west side, get caught with one joint, you can get thrown in jail.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure we talk about
All right, let's go on. Go ahead.
Okay, so before I say anything else, I want to clarify, I am not a doctor, I'm not a medical expert, so anything I'm going to say related to ingestion and medical stuff, it's not medical advice. Do your research, talk to a professional, but it's important with legalization coming. And tomorrow, some dispensaries will be open, some won't. Tom Schuba, who you've had on here plenty of times,
Young Thomas,
has done an article and has a link, I think, so you can figure out which dispensaries will be open tomorrow. Mm-hmm. There's going to be a shortage of flower. That's sort of the industry term for bud, for dried cannabis, because you can't buy it, you can't buy the live, fresh plants. It's going to be hard to get that. What there is a huge supply of is edibles. So even a lot of people that have smoked a lot have never tried edibles. They don't know what they're doing. They need to know. I want to keep our emergency rooms open for people that actually need care in the emergency room. So Illinois and a lot of states said the maximum dose for an edible is 10 milligrams. So when you go to the dispensary, you'll see chocolate bars that are 100 milligrams scored into 10 rectangles or squares. So each square, you think, oh, this is one dose. I'm going to eat a square. That's what they're telling me a dose is. Or you get a bag of gummies, and one tiny little gummy is 10 milligrams of weed. All right, 10 milligrams of THC, I should say. That is going to get a lot of people really high and feel like they're dying. They're going crazy. So if you're going to try edibles, start low and stay slow. The other thing is, while a lot,
write that down.
Yeah,
Start
that's a common. Start low, stay slow.
Got it. Mm-hmm.
All right. The other thing is, most people feel the effects of edibles in about 45 minutes. Might be half an hour for you, might be an hour. But there are plenty of people out there, including people I know in the industry, they don't feel it for 3 hours. So if you're sitting there with a bunch of friends, everyone takes some of the chocolate or has a gummy, and like all your friends are feeling high, and you're like, I don't feel anything. Let me have another one. Half an hour goes by. You don't feel anything. You have another one. At 3 hours, you're starting to feel it. 3.5, 4 hours, you are stoned out of your mind.
Yeah.
So be careful. A lot of people recommend start at 2 or 2.5 milligrams of THC your first time. The other thing is, don't do it when you're going to have to drive the next morning, because if it doesn't kick in for 3 hours and you're taking it like 8 o'clock at night, when you eat it, it lasts 6 to 8 hours. You might get up and try to drive to work and you're high. Don't drive high. It's not worth it. It's really not. So the other thing to think about is, you were saying, yeah, it's legal. Okay. But it is illegal to give someone cannabis without letting them know there's cannabis in the product. You can't just give your friends gummies or chocolate without telling them. Don't do that. Okay, I see people making, joking about that, but you really don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And there are some home remedies that a lot of people say work to bring you down if you take too much. There is some research out there that says this is true, but I don't know. But if you happen to have too much, limonene. Limonene is a terpene. We're not going to get into terpenes, cannabinoids, flavonoids, all those things, but terpenes are things that occur in a lot of plants. It's in every citrus that there is. It's in a lot of cannabis. So if you make some fresh squeezed lemonade, you can put the sugar in it, water it down as much as you want. Put some of the lemon zest in it too, because the lemon zest is what has a high concentration of limonene. Drink that. That should help bring you down some. CBD. Just have a CBD tincture on hand. What that does, CBD actually will go sit on the receptor sites that break down the THC. So instead, the THC is just going to get flushed out of your system. Because when you eat it, it becomes a much stronger form of THC than when you smoke it. They're actually chemical names. It becomes 11-hydroxy-THC. When you eat it, when you smoke it, it's delta-9. So there's a difference.
So there's evidence from other states like Colorado that went legal of people binging, like people just rushing out, getting the edibles, eating more edibles than they should, not realizing that they're eating too much or not getting that high right away. So eating more. Well, I'm not getting high. I'll eat more.
I knew someone that ate half a bar and slept for like 2 days.
I hear so many stories.
Yeah.
Yes,
Like,
2 days. It lasts 48 hours when you have too much.
Yeah.
So you predict, both of you think that like within the next week or so, we're going to see articles filling the paper about people having bad reactions, and then it'll of course start up the call to make it illegal again.
I think that would they're going to choose the most obscure stories and just amplify those. Yeah.
But it's all about education. Anything you
Right.
do, be an educated consumer. That's what's so important here.
All right, now I'm going to expose my utter ignorance about marijuana, cannabis, reefer, whatever you want to call it. I'm not ashamed or afraid to expose my utter ignorance, as my dear friend Milo can attest, who's just joined us, who'll be on in a little while. So, all right, so are there different variants of this beast that have less of an impact on people's propensity to lose their freaking minds?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Great question.
Thank you.
Okay, so first of all, raw cannabis can't get you high.
What does that mean, raw cannabis?
The plant, until it's heated, there's a chemical process called decarboxylation. The THC actually loses a molecule and goes from being an acid, which has, not like acid, I'm talking about like acid base in chemistry. Yeah, poor choice.
Lisa, I love it when you get all scientific and stuff. It's like a chemistry class.
And I've learned all this over the past couple of years by attending conferences and taking online courses. But so I actually brought a bottle of a tincture, for those of you looking. This is liquid THCA. When it has that A attached, it means it's raw. So this is good for neural repair. It's a neural protectant, can help with focus, cannot get you high. You could drink the whole bottle, you couldn't
what's
get high.
neural repair mean?
Neural.
Oh, so what does that mean?
Oh, so there is a lot of research out there that's been showing the benefits of using THCA and different compounds in cannabis for patients with Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, a lot of different disorders, and traumatic brain injuries and post-concussion syndrome. It's like a miracle drug. Again, not a doctor. A lot of it's anecdotal.
Yeah,
That's my line.
That's it. He always goes, not a doctor. So if you, what's that thing that you take a little dabble? Do you if you have you're forgetful or something?
Well, over time, it can help. They're actually doing studies to show differences, I think, in the brain. So, and again, a lot of this research is being done in Europe and Israel because the U.S. is making it very difficult for
It's
people
still
to do
illegal
research.
on the federal books.
It's illegal on the federal level. Yeah.
So don't take it to O'Hare on an airplane when you're flying to California.
I have a friend got stopped at the Denver airport a couple months ago. She'd flown with it plenty of times. You know, you're not supposed to, but she had a vape pen and a chocolate bar. And they had the Denver police there. I don't know why they decided to start checking. They were unzipping like DOP kits and inside pockets of purses and looking for things. So she had virtually none on her, but all of a sudden these 3 cops are saying you're about to, commit a federal offense. When you go through there, if you board that airplane, they confiscate it, scared the crap out of her and then let her go.
So wait, so that stuff that you just showed me, that won't, okay, it's been so long since I've been high, but that won't get you high like in the old days you got high,
This can't get you high, and getting high is not my thing. I'm about using it for medical benefits and microdosing, which is using the smallest amount you can to get the therapeutic effect without the high.
All right. Does it help with headaches?
Yes. Yes, if you get the right one. Something I really want to share. When we talked about having too much, how you might feel like you're dying or going crazy, there is research out there to show that people with anxiety disorders can be greatly helped by cannabis if they keep the dose really low. For those with anxiety disorders, if they go over their therapeutic dose, and that's something you got to figure out on your own because every body responds differently and will respond differently on different days, differently based on what's in their stomach, what they're eating it with. It can create greatly elevated levels of anxiety. So be really careful if you're an anxious person. Really start low. And if you start to find you're getting anxious as you're upping your dosage, you've gone too far, take a step back.
Did you ever see the Larry David show, Curb Your Enthusiasm, where he smokes the joint? You saw that particular episode?
I saw that. Remind me what happens.
All right, that's one of my favorite shows. Episodes. It's the one in which, if you've seen it, Larry David, what a character. Okay, so in L.A., they have special lanes on the highway because it's so traffic congested for people who are commuting with other people.
Yes.
So if not a solo. So Larry David wants to get to the Dodgers game really fast, but he's alone in a car. So he's figuring out, what can I do to get in the commuting lane? And he sees a prostitute. So he, freaking Larry David. So he asked the prostitute to come into the car with him, and just so she'll go with, so she negotiates a deal. All I want you to do, and then so she starts bargaining with her. Anyway, she gets in the car with them, so they go in the commuting lane. They go to the Dodgers game. Now he's hanging out with her for the whole day, and she has reefer, and so they end up smoking reefer, and he's at home, and it really hits home for anybody. This gets into the people to the point you're talking about. Like he's looking in the mirror and he's saying, I'm a worthless human being. I don't work hard enough. I'm lazy. And it's just like marijuana is not for everybody.
It is not for everybody. It can do great things for a lot of people and some not so great things for others, especially for anyone who takes too much.
Kind of like an apples and oranges comparison here, but it's kind of like alcohol. If you have to know what your body can take and what you're going to respond well or bad to. It's like, am I going to take a shot of Malort or am I going to take a shot of tequila?
Yeah.
You know, what's going to affect you differently? My wife and I went to Washington State not too long ago, and we went into one of these dispensaries just to check it out. No funny business. And it was like we were in a pharmacy. Like, what's wrong with you? Like, do you have anxiety? You have eczema? Stress? What is it? And then they just laid everything out. Here's the array. We can choose this, help with this, to help with that. It was amazing to experience.
So presumably, Lisa, following up what Josh was saying, the people at the dispensaries tomorrow will be offering the same cautionary advice that you're offering. Yeah. The long pause.
It would be nice if they did, but it's going to be so busy. Some people come in, they're like, okay, is this your first experience with cannabis? Oh, no. They buy stuff, but they don't understand the weed today is so much stronger than it was 10, 20, 30 years ago. You know, in college, people who, you know, were in college 70s, 80s, probably even 90s, you know, passing around a bong, passing around the joints, many, many hits. You're like a little high. Now, one hit can get you higher than you've ever been before. This stuff is so strong. The THC content is really high. And I've heard talk that they may end up limiting the THC content of what they're selling for rec. So a whole nother conversation is why have a medical card if it's legal.
All right. So get into the issue of the shortage. That the paper, I think Thomas Schuba in today's Sun Times had a story about potential shortage tomorrow. They just expect that they won't be able to keep up with the demand. Why is this?
Well, there are already shortages because of the alternative to opioids program and the way they changed the process of getting a medical card where you can get an instant temporary card online. The patient count jumped from around 50,000 to about 85,000 in a very short period of time. So there is already a shortage, and a lot of medical patients can't get what they usually take. And every strain is different. So when you find something that works for you, you want to stick with it. So even if you look at the profile and see some of the main components, they react differently together. There's something called an entourage effect. So there are medical patients I see in these forums online. I can't get my stuff. Has anyone been able to find it anywhere? And so dispensers are required to keep product aside for medical patients. However, what I've seen is they're required to keep what was in demand 6 months ago, which was when the patient count was probably about half, maybe 2/3 of what it is now. So there's not much flower. You're not going to be able to get much smokable. I don't know about the supply of vape cartridges.
And so how long do you think this shortage will last?
I'm hearing it's going to be 3 to 5 months probably. I heard from one company they're expecting the flower to dry up, to be gone in 3 days. Another one said 5 to 7 days. I think in Tom's article, someone said maybe week and a half. So we just don't know. But some dispensaries are limiting what they will sell to people because they want more people to get a chance to get it.
Yeah, and of course, people with the medical cards go to the head of the line.
They are going to have procedures for that, yes.
Yeah. All right, and the cost. What do you anticipate the cost to be?
I don't think the cost is going up. I think it's about $60 for an eighth because I don't buy that. I'm getting more tinctures and edibles, and one chocolate bar lasts me 3 months when I use it for sleep.
All right, and excuse again my utter ignorance. It's been a long time since I purchased the product. I never heard of an eighth. So what's an eighth?
I'll take that one. It's probably that big, maybe.
So for
that's
a podcast,
like a nugget.
that's
That'd
like
be
a
like
quarter.
a nugget form.
$60,
like bigger than a quarter, I'd
Good
say.
God.
Right? What'd you say?
And I'm hearing the street prices between like 45 and 60. When you go into the dispensary, you've got taxes. But when you're buying into a dispensary, it has been lab tested. You know it's free of toxins, of heavy metals, of pesticides, because hemp and the cannabis plants, they soak up a lot of that stuff we want out of the soil. They use hemp to clean up nuclear waste sites. So like CBD, don't buy it at the gas station unless that brand has real lab testing online. Be careful about your CBD. Be very careful.
Because some stuff could be cut that you may be buying on the street. Right?
Yeah, on the street, you don't know
really
what's in it.
Yeah.
All right. So you're going to tell me what the difference between hemp and cannabis is.
Okay. With this whole prohibition thing, the federal government just drew a line in the sand, said if it's higher than 0.3% THC in the plant, then it's cannabis. And if it's under that, it's industrial hemp. So it's really the same thing. And they've had issues for a couple years now with hemp shipments getting confiscated because the police can't tell the difference. They're like seizing truckloads of this stuff. And then the companies are fighting for like months to get it back, and it sits in there, it can mold, they lose everything. So there's equipment, it's amazing, like the size of a briefcase. They can actually test it roadside. But you might have one plant, instead of being 0.3, it's 0.31, you know? So it's very arbitrary and unfair, and that needs to change.
All right. Now, before I let you go, you have a whole bunch of other products on your right in front of you. You want to talk about them?
Okay. So I brought some things in because when you go to dispensaries in Illinois, everything is like double and triple sealed. The laws are really strict. There was one dispensary in Colorado. They had these big, gorgeous glass jars of bud, and they'd open it up, here, smell this one, you know, they're letting it waft. They can't do that in Illinois. That's illegal. It has to be sealed. So these are actually hemp pre-rolls that I got at a hemp conference. So they're joints, but it's hemp inside, what's considered hemp, instead of cannabis. So there's CBD, and when I was at this conference, there were some people that smoked cigarettes, and like, you know what, I got it. Let me try this. And they're like, okay, Milo's got a whole pack. Let's show them the whole pack.
Whoa.
Okay. So here's one. Yeah, American Spirit sells.
A shorty.
A shorty. Okay. So.
Tell you, the man knows everything. Milo Samardzija, one of Chicago's finest writers. We'll have him on really
Just
soon.
an aside, if it's helpful, an eighth is an eighth of an ounce. So that's
an
probably
eighth
like
of an ounce.
So maybe a couple weeks or
I
something,
should probably
maybe, depending on how much you smoke.
Have Milo discuss this because it's more historical reference. But back in the day, there was something calling a nickel bag.
Yeah, it was $5.
Yeah, well, it was more like yeah. So we'll ask him, explain what the difference between a nickel bag and an eighth is.
My God, you're old.
A nickel bag, man.
So when you go in, like this is a package, this had chocolates in it.
Yeah.
So when I say it's double and triple sealed, like this is in here, it's sealed. There are labels telling you what was in that batch, the exact percentage of THC, CBD, and some other popular cannabinoids. Pop this open. So when you buy bud, when you're buying the plant now, it's going to be in a container like this. Mm-hmm. It's not going to be in a baggie.
Okay. The old nickel bag. I gotcha.
And you're not supposed to open it up in your car. There are legal limits as to how much you can possess. Just a word of warning, because I know you're trying to wrap up with me here. Starting tomorrow, you can legally make, pot dinners, weed dinners for all of your friends if you tell them it's infused.
Yes.
But the most that any one person is allowed to possess legally at any one time is 30 grams, which is about an ounce. But there's actually an article in the Reader. There was a column, To Be Blunt, and there's one, I think it's called Supper Clubs. Mm-hmm. But if you look at that, the attorney, who's very weed friendly, and he's a cannabis attorney, breaks down how many hundreds of people you can get high with 1 ounce of cannabis. So he's like, don't even think about putting an ounce into your dinner for a few friends. They're not going to be leaving your house for days.
Yeah, a weed attorney. What a concept.
Can I ask a quick question about the weed dinners? If you're renting, are you allowed legally to do that after today?
Oh, if you're renting, it depends on your landlord. Okay,
Yeah,
actually, the current copy of the Reader, which is on the stands for 2 weeks because January 2nd is the one day off during the year this year, there's a pullout in the middle from a cannabis attorney from one of the top cannabis law firms in the country. He's got some do's and don'ts, and he addresses what happens if you're in a rental or a condo, and if you're in a CHA building, public housing, you can get evicted because it's federally illegal. So you can have your Oxy and all your benzos and take any of those prescription drugs that have a lot of side effects for a lot of people. But if you get caught with weed, you can get thrown out. So be careful.
I think I should bring that weed lawyer on. Just a reefer lawyer. What a concept. In the old days, it's the guy who bailed you out of jail. Now it's you go to this guy for advice. But I know I'm trying to restrain myself from pointing out the political ramifications of all this. But just one more point I want to say. The war on drugs was hit hardest at the poor people in this country, at black people in this country. And guess what? It's still illegal in public housing projects. This freaking country, Milo, I'm looking at Milo, we're old enough to know, it takes a while for anything resembling social justice to occur. All right, I want to get a prediction from you, Lisa, and that is this. Tomorrow, January 1st, it's legal. So there'll be lots of things happening all over the state, all over the city. What do you predict the headlines will be on young Tom Schuba's article on the 2nd and the 3rd, and all the other reporters who are covering the first day of reefer? What do you think the headlines will be? What are your predictions?
Chicago is now a happy place. Lots of happy people walking around. But no, I agree with Joshua. We're going to see some crazy headlines about the anti-cannabis people trying to demonize it again.
Yeah.
And we need a lot of people on the other side to balance that out. We need people like Tom Schuba and people who understand what this really is to show some balanced articles. One other thing I want to show, I just brought a couple books. So if people want to learn more, there are books. These are just a couple in my library. Vitamin Weed, Cannabis Pharmacy, and then there's a cookbook, the 420 Gourmet. People in Illinois, and especially in the industry.
420 Gourmet.
Oh, he's a great guy. He's got, for any Jewish listeners thinking about their Passover menu, he's got a recipe for matzo ball soup in there.
Matzo ball soup. Okay.
It's one of his signature dishes.
I love that.
All right.
Lots of great things. Yeah, but put those reader events, the February 5th one, look for it soon, Green Space Sessions.
Well, we'll bring you back before that February 5th one to promote
right.
that one a little more. Just
Yeah.
you have to remind me, okay?
I will remind you.
Because I
I'll
smoked
get-
a lot of reefer back in the 70s. I can't remember anything.
And I'll get you some great cannabis attorneys to come on, pharmacists, Canadocs, a lot of people on here to educate
Wait,
your...
Canadocs?
Oh, yeah. There are doctors that now are open to talking to patients, helping patients get off their opioids and, switch over to cannabis. Yeah.
All right, that I just never heard the word Canadocs. All right, very good. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming on. Lisa Solomon, the Reader's Reefer Expert. What a job, what a title.
Thank you for having me.
She knows her stuff. You'll be hearing from her a lot in the coming year. Thank you very much, Lisa. Happy New Year. And happy Reefer Day. How about that?
Happy Reefer Day. Thank you.
All right, we're gonna take
Happy New Year, Ben.
We're gonna take a break, and the great Milo Samardzija will be on. The man knows more about marijuana than anyone in the world. Put man, you put the pressure on me. He's a great writer, a great friend of mine. Milo Samardzija, we're going to bring him on. We're going to talk all things marijuana. We'll probably get into culture. Don't forget, with Joshua, we're going to have the great quiz. Milo doesn't know about this. We're going to have the Rally Playlist quiz, an exploration of their musical knowledge. Maybe smoking a joint will help them. We'll be right back after this. When you lose a loved one whose wishes were to be cremated, Chicagoland Cremation Options provides your family a dignified and affordable cremation service. Chicagoland Cremation Options helps you bypass the expensive overhead of a funeral home or cemetery by streamlining the cremation directly. It saves you sometimes thousands of dollars. Chicagoland Cremation Options Crematory, just south of O'Hare, 5 minutes west of Chicago. It's a family-owned business operated by my good friend Douglas Klein. You can find them at ChicagolandCremationOptions.com. One more time, ChicagolandCremationOptions.com.
It's Chicagoland's adult entertainment playground. It's the world-famous Admiral Theater, 3940 West Lawrence Avenue. The Admiral is homegrown from Chicago, and it's the most conveniently located club in all of the city. 15 minutes from the O'Hare Airport in downtown Chicago Loop. Voted Chicago's best strip club, the Admiral has showgirls galore and a variety of adult entertainment shows. The world-famous Admiral Theater, open every day from 7 p.m. to 6 a.m., 3940 West Lawrence Avenue. For events, showtime, and other information, visit AdmiralX.com. Must be 18 years of age or older to enter.
In 2010, you petitioned the USDA to keep frozen pizzas in school lunches, therefore allowing for the sauce to be counted as a vegetable in order to support the business of a Minnesota frozen foods company. Amid the obesity epidemic that has plagued this country for decades, to what extent do you believe that the financial interests of corporations in your home state should outweigh the health of Americans' next generation?
Okay, well, that's a big question. Thank you. First of all, I made clear in a New York Times article a few years later when I was asked about that it was just a letter that I had sent. We were in the middle of the downturn, and it was a little more, I would say, complex in terms of the language, but it's a fair criticism. And so I said I regretted sending that letter. It was about trying to keep a company afloat in a really small town that employed a bunch of people. But I think that nutrition is paramount for this country, and that's why way before I was running for president, I said that that was a mistake, all right? So let's
Well, it's unfortunate, and our team is back at the table, and I know at least a portion of their bargaining team is there. It's unfortunate that the larger bargaining team has decided that they're going to take the day off. There should be a sense of urgency all the way around, and I'm never going to shy away from publicizing to the union and also to the public the hardships that our students and our families are facing. Look, I'm a kid who grew up really trying to take advantage of all the opportunities that my public school education gave me, and one of which was participating in athletics. I was never going to go on to the next level, but they were important to me. They were important to my teammates. And what we're seeing is real human cost for this work stoppage, and I felt and I know Dr. Jackson and President Duvalier joined me in thinking we needed to highlight the human cost of this work stoppage. We have been making progress, not enough, not fast enough, but we felt like it was important to let the union and let the public know what's actually happening and the consequences for our young people, and ask them in good faith to come back and continue bargaining in good faith. They've obviously rejected that, but I'm not going to shy away from the fact that I have a responsibility to carry with me the weight and the hardship that our young people and their families are facing during this work stoppage, and I'm never going to shy.
All right, that's enough. Hour number 2 of your Ben Joravsky Show for Tuesday, December 31st is just moments away. But before we get into hour number 2, we need to thank the following unions once again for sponsoring this program. First up, it's the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers, Local 126 in District 8. The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 9, sponsor this program, as well as the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 150. A giant thank you to those unions for jumping on board and sponsoring our program. And, of course, today's Ben Joravsky Show is brought to you by our dear friends at the Chicago Federation of Labor. Hour number 2, let's go. It is Tuesday, December 31st, and live from the Chicago Sun-Times Chicago Reader Studio on Racine Avenue, this is the Ben Joravsky Show. In this hour of the program, more marijuana talk. I'm going to get a contact high from all this talk. We're talking with Ben's good friend, Milo Samardzija. And now your host, Chicago Reader columnist, Ben Joravsky.
Lisa Solomon has left the room. Lisa Solomon has left the building, but Milo Samardzija is in the building. And he's not only my dear friend, I've known him probably longer than any other person in the city of Chicago, other than my wife. I met Milo shortly after I met my wife because he was the guy who lived downstairs from me when I moved to Chicago back in 1981. And I think the last time I smoked a joint was with Milo in 1981.
On the front porch.
On the front porch. And the great Roger was sitting, we'll talk about that, when the great Roger was sitting behind us. But Milo's also an outstanding writer. We tease him, or I tease him, about being an expert on marijuana. But I urge everybody to read Schoolboy, his novel. And he's Wasserman's Garden, another great novel that Milo wrote. So he's an outstanding writer. And he was my partner in crime for many years at the Third City, the funniest blog in the world. So in addition to being an expert on all things marijuana, he is a fine writer. Before we bring Milo on, D, you got an update for me?
Absolutely, I do. We're doing our top 10 local stories of 2019, the top 10 Chicago and or Illinois stories. It's a little countdown we're doing. Yeah, countdown. No one does that, right, at the end of the year?
No
never, shows do that
Never heard of that before.
No,
we're so original.
This is super original, guys.
A wonderful concept.
I tell you, especially on these slow news days.
Yeah, wonderful concept. So, how did we come up with that?
I don't know. But we've been doing our top 10. We have reached number 7. So to do a quick recap here, number 10 was the Fair Tax Initiative getting on the ballot in 2020. Number 9, that damn alligator in the Humboldt Park Lagoon. And number 8, Confederate Railroad Gate. And it's time for number 7, the 20, I got the laws mixed up. The top 10 Chicago and or Illinois stories. Countdown continues.
Number 7.
Our number 7 story. Ben has no idea what it is.
I have no idea.
Here it is.
Okay.
We've taken a position so far, and the candidates have, through the process, a few have not, on basically Medicare for all, which is we're going to eliminate 150 million people's health care, and we're going to provide health care for people that just come over the border. That is an untenable position for the general election.
Number 7, it's the post-Chicago mayoral life of Rahm Emanuel. Yes, Mayor Rahm. Leaving in general could be its own top story. But we sure did have a lot of fun on this program discussing his next endeavor. And no, we're not talking about his stupid bicycle adventures. No. ABC hired the former Chicago mayor as a political pundit. From chatting alongside and fist bumping with former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie on ABC this week, to even sharing his wisdom for all of us at ABC's 2020 Democratic presidential candidate debates.
You know, I think progressives are really where the energy is right now. And I think if you can expand the electorate, which is what we saw in 08, bringing out new voters, particularly brown and black voters, young voters, energize the base where you don't have to change your message much, right? Just go out and get those voters excited. We can win.
Hold on, Ron. I saw you shaking your head real quick. What's the rebuttal here?
Well, first of all, Donald Trump is going to do a great job turning out our vote. And in 08, as well as in 92, 96, and in 12, is because both Bill Clinton and Barack Obama brought other people, not just people in the party, other people to the party.
It's our seventh top Chicago and or Illinois story of 2019. It's Rahm the Pundit.
Yeah, I remember this. Oh my goodness, that was an excerpt of Rahm, and who was he debating? I can't remember who the woman was that he was debating. I agree with the woman 100%, and I completely disagree. Big shock there with Rahm Emanuel. There's connection to the larger discussion of marijuana that we're having today. Rahm Emanuel, the worldview of Rahm Emanuel, as it applies to Democratic politics, has been the prevailing view of the mainstream of the Democratic Party really since the 1972 George McGovern campaign. And that is, we are going to move to the right. That's the way to win an election in this country. You go to the right. And so that means Democrats consistently follow Republicans. As Republicans move further to the right, Democrats move further to the right. The center moves further to the right. And values that Democrats supposedly stand for get thrown out the window. So I see this all the time, Milo. I've seen this my entire adult life. I've seen Democrats walk away from issues that they should believe in. Health care for all, just a universal concept. Milo and I talk about this all the time because we'll talk about this later. He served in Vietnam, and as a result, he gets great health care through the VA.
Yes.
All right? Great health care for the VA.
I've got no complaints about the VA.
Yeah. So, Milo, please explain to me why in the world you have to put your life in limbo. You have to, be threatened with your existence to be wiped out before you get some kind of good health care. What a bargain they're striking with us.
Well, we weren't fortunate enough to be born in Norway or Sweden or some other civilized country. We live in the United States.
Yeah. And in the United States, there is not universal health care. And this, the Rahms of the Democratic Party have been arguing for the last 30 years. No, don't push health care. It's too controversial. It's too socialist. It doesn't poll well with swing voters in suburban Virginia. It doesn't poll well with swing voters outside of Milwaukee. We're going to lose the swing states. And so the Democratic Party moves to the right, following the Republican Party. So now here we are in 2020. We're heading right into the 2020 election against Donald Trump, and we have two essential strategies that the Democrats have to decide whether they're going to follow. They're going to go with Bernie, who advocates health care for all, college education for all, just like these basic New Deal programs that are straight out of the FDR playbook, or are we going to go to the Clinton playbook? The Rahm Emanuel playbook. No. We don't want to go too far. We don't want to be too radical. Look, so we'll have health care. I never understood this, Milo. Clinton and Rahm came up with health care for kids, but not their parents. What, parents don't get sick? It's not going to be bad to the kid if the parent can't work? If the parent made no freaking sense. But I'm sure they did some kind of, poll of swing voters in suburban Virginia, a focus group. That's what they do. They do focus groups, and they go, oh, this is the winning strategy. And God forbid they encourage the base to vote. That's something they're very scared of. They don't want the base to vote because could you imagine? When Rahm got elected mayor of the city of Chicago, only about 35% of the people voted. Could you imagine if the other 65% voted? He wouldn't have gotten elected in the first place. So that's... You're bringing back all those memories by playing that.
That's the point. It's a countdown to remember the year.
Oh, my God. I remember Rahm the Pundit, man.
That's number 7, Rahm the Pundit. Coming up before we get out of here, we are going to do...
Wait, Milo wants to say something. Yes.
I was gonna mention the dentist to quit pissing Ben off.
Never. Coming up before we get out of here, we are gonna do
number 6.
Oh, yeah. And then after that, we're going to do 5 through 1 as a Benny J bonus. And you can download it at both Chicago Sun-Times, Chicago Reader websites, or wherever else you download your favorite podcast. But before we get out of here, number 6 on our top 10 Chicago and or Illinois stories of 2019.
All right, very good. All right, Milo Samardzija, welcome back, Cotter. You were on the old show I had before I got fired, and now you're here. So welcome back, Milo.
I expect you to get fired again pretty soon, too.
Yeah, I got my bags packed over there. It's always in the corner. You never know. You never know.
You never know. All right,
pulling no punches.
This is very disappointing. I was told that there was going to be a marijuana blowout here. I stopped at Jewel, got a bunch of Doritos and
I know. Our last guest took everything with her. She had all that
Milo,
stuff.
did you take that joint you left? You brought it?
And all we're going to do is talk about it.
I know. Well, yeah. I think there's sprinklers here, Milo. I told you. See, that's a sprinkler there. If you light up a joint.
Yeah.
That's a different type of smoke.
Yeah, then Ben will get fired again.
That will guarantee. You want to see me get fired? Light up a joint. All right, Milo Samardzija. You're a writer. As I said, Schoolboy, I urge everybody to check it out. You could still purchase it on Amazon. And Wasserman Garden, two completely different books. Before we talk about reefer, let's just talk about how completely different these books are. Schoolboy is a coming-of-age story, and
about a young gambler.
Talk about this. Go ahead.
Oh, it's just a coming-of-age story about a young gambler and how the twists and turns that life has in store for him.
Yeah, Milo, in addition to being a consumer of marijuana over the years, is a hell of a gambler. Great poker player. I'm getting all his secrets out there in the open.
I may be the worst poker player ever, but when my friends have a game, they send a cab for me.
Yeah,
that sounds like something a poker player would
I
say.
know.
Yeah.
No, he used to, when I moved into, Milo was in the apartment before me, the downstairs one. I moved in after Milo. But there was this thing that you used to get involved with back in the day called I think you called it the World Series of Poker, didn't you? Or you had some kind of name for it? Like it would be these blowout poker games. And I would see, so it would be a Saturday night. I'd see a Saturday, well, you going to the poker game? Yeah, I'm going to go. There was like a math professor there and a couple of lawyers who I probably wouldn't want to hire for anything.
Benny, you don't want to play poker with lawyers because I remember sometimes sitting at a table with 3 or 4 lawyers, and every time there'd be a question about the game, everyone had to have their say. They had brought up precedent. They listed previous games that played in bathrooms in Milwaukee 40 years ago. So I would suggest not playing.
No, don't play with lawyers.
Don't play with lawyers.
Or math professors.
Yeah.
And Wasserman Gardens is a parable.
It's an allegory about the Vietnam War.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk about that a little bit, Milo. You're born and raised. No, you weren't born. You were raised in Gary,
Indiana.
I was
raised in Gary, Indiana. I moved there from Milwaukee when I was about 5 years old.
Okay. All right. So, and then you were sent to Vietnam.
Well, since ostensibly I'm here to talk about weed,
mm-hmm.
I want to get just a bit of a history. I smoked my first joint in Sandy Bordeaux's basement in 1967.
Mm.
And a year later, I got drafted and sent to, after training and everything, I got sent to Vietnam. So where I got to sample much finer strains of weed that were available in Gary at the time.
All right, let's talk about that. 1967, you were just out of high school or still in high school?
I believe I was a senior in high school.
Senior in high school.
I graduated in 67.
All right, so think about this. So how was it advertised? You know what I mean? Like, what did they say to entice you, to get you to smoke that first joint?
Well, 67 was kind of an odd year. 66 is when the culture kind of exploded and hippies became part of the landscape.
Mm-hmm.
And marijuana, we were the boys in Gary were used to marijuana. There was the city ran 3 shifts. It was all factory work. So guys used to take all kind of drugs, just stay awake and things like that. And that's why, for one reason, I thought Gary was the greatest town in the world, because at any time of the day or night, you could get a breakfast, a drink, you could get laid if you wanted.
Sometimes all 3 at once.
Yeah. But when the hippie thing happened, the summer of love and all that, the word got out, and suddenly there was a little reefer around town. So we tried it, and thank God for the Serrano brothers who provided most of it.
The Serrano brothers, immortal Gary residents. Now, Milo, these are basically working class kids.
Oh yeah,
Steel mill
all
kids.
steel mill kids. Yes.
Your dad worked in a steel mill.
Oh, he worked in an auto plant, but it was about a mile away from the steel mill.
So the Serrano brothers were kids you went to high school with?
Yes. Cisco Serrano and his brother Sammy.
Sammy Serrano. And so what did they go, hey, Milo, got a little something for you?
I don't remember the exact circumstance, but I think my friend Sandy, who passed away a few years ago, he was good friends with the Serrano brothers, and they provided, hey, so you want to try this? And of course, I said yes.
And do you remember it? Do you remember the
No, I remember just being in the basement and smoking and getting a little silly, and that's all I remember. It was so long ago.
This would have been before the Nixon administration started cracking down on
This is
marijuana.
before the Nixon administration.
Right, okay. So what would you say I don't mean to cut in on the interview.
No, go ahead.
But what would you say was the contrast between pre and post Nixon administration more on drugs? Like, what was the feeling? Did that change your interaction with weed at all, or?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Because, like I say, when I smoked my first joint in '67, and then a year later I was drafted in the Army.
Mm-hmm.
So I spent 2 years in the military, and 14 months of that was overseas. And in Southeast Asia, getting hold of marijuana was not a problem. It was everywhere. And in most places, we used to go to in Vietnam. We'd get it from Buddhist monks. They'd have bushel baskets of it. You give them $5, and they grab a handful and you just give it to you.
And everybody was smoking pretty much over there.
Well, I mean, I don't know if everybody's smoking, but as we all do, we surround ourselves with like-minded people. So my crowd was smoking, but there were some guys that were into alcohol, and there was heroin addicts and all sorts of fun things.
And the obvious point, it helped get you through that experience.
You needed some escape from the reality of it, and sometimes getting a hold of hard liquor was difficult. We always had access to warm beer, but marijuana was usually the drug of choice for most people.
Milo, I don't think I've ever asked you this question. Maybe I have, but I don't remember the answer because I was high at the time. But sorry, I just love that joke so much. Literally, the last time I smoked was with Milo on his front porch. Roger, our Milo's dear friend from way back in, and Gary was sitting behind us. And that's the first time I heard the word fiduciary. It's one of my great moments in my life. We were talking about the Cubs. And Milo, lifelong Cub fan, but he announced at this moment that he was through with the Cubs. Milo, remember this? Because the new owners, God, it was the Tribune that just purchased them, and they
fired
Ernie Banks.
Mm-hmm. Can you imagine that?
Yeah, Ernie Banks. Kids don't know. He was Mr.
I
Cub.
know Ernie
You know Ernie
Banks.
Banks?
Oh,
Okay,
come on.
all right,
They've
all right.
got a statue.
Yeah, they got a statue.
Come on.
Yeah.
And
they fired him because what? They were too cheap to.
They're just too cheap. Look, the Boston Red Sox used to pay Ted Williams a few grand to go down to spring training, walk around, talk to the young guys, shake a few hands, sign some autographs.
Yeah.
I don't get that about Chicago teams. I
But
feel like they're so cheap.
They wouldn't do that for Ernie Banks.
Yeah, they cut Ernie Banks from the payroll, and so Milo announced that it's still this memory. So Milo and I were sitting on the front porch. It's me, Milo, and Roger. And Milo and I are sitting at the front stoop, and Roger's behind us in the shadows. And I kind of forgot that he was even there. And this joint is going around, and Milo goes, "That's it. I'm through with the Cubs. They fired Mr. Cub. They fired Mr. Cub because they wouldn't pay him the money." And that was, you were using George Steinbrenner. George Steinbrenner with the Yankees. He still has Mickey Mantle coming around, Whitey Ford coming around. That's it. I'm through with the Cubs. They're too cheap to pay Mr. Cub. And from the back comes the voice of Roger. And he goes, "Well, I think they have a fiduciary responsibility." I'm like, Milo and I are like, fiduciary? I'm like, what does that mean?
Benny, we should have beaten him up right there. we just let him get away with it.
Yeah, we did. We let him get it anyway. That's the last time. That was it. I was off. When Roger knew a word I didn't know, I was embarrassed. So, Milo, what's your theory about why the resistance to marijuana all these years?
Well, a lot of it is racial. In the Southwest, it was associated mainly with Mexican population. And in the American South, it was mainly associated with the black population, jazz musicians, other shady types. But I was going to give a little bit more background on my use.
Go ahead.
I came back from Vietnam. I was a pothead maybe through all of my 20s. I smoked basically every day. And but I got married late in life, 31, and then I had a couple of children, and I quit. I gave it up, and for a space of about 10, 15 years, I would smoke maybe one joint a year. Maybe with some friends and having a few drinks or something. And then about 2 or 3 years ago, I was at the Veterans Hospital. I was complaining about lack of sleep and just some issues left over from my service in the Army. And veterans said, try one of these. I said, well, I know what that is. And he says, no, this stuff will help you sleep, because I was having trouble sleeping. And I said, where'd you get this? He said, well, I got a medical marijuana card. And I said, well, okay. Well, I took the gifted joint home, smoked most of it, slept like a baby. I was just so happy to be, to go to bed and not wake up until 8 hours later, 7 hours later. And so I decided to get a medical marijuana card, and I got it I think it was about 2 years ago. And now I've become a pothead. I mean, after, like
circle of life. Circle of life.
Circle of life.
15, 20 years without smoking it, and now, in my old age, I'm becoming a damn pothead.
Yeah, and so what? You've discovered medicinal.
Well, for me, I've got
some
aches and pains, and some trouble sleeping and things like that. Just some issues associated with age, probably as much as anything else.
Yeah.
But it helps.
Now, Milo, did you realize the medicinal benefits of marijuana back in the 70s and the 80s when you were smoking it? Or just...
No, the only benefit that I noticed was that it made me feel really good.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah.
But now when you go to the marijuana dispensaries, they've refined the stuff so much that they've got stuff to help you sleep, for your appetite, for stimulation, there's a dozen different categories they can provide some weed for.
Yeah. We were talking about that earlier, that my wife and I went up to Washington State, visited a dispensary, and it was like you were at a walk-in pharmacy.
Yeah.
Like they gave you all different types of options.
Yeah.
It's an incredible world.
Yeah.
Milo and I, for years, ran the Third City blog, and on a regular basis, pretty much every day, we would get on the phone together, and we would come up with an advertisement of the day. And this is kind of the twisted mind of Milo. One of the ads was for Nickelbag Bernie. It was Milo's creation. I got to give the man credit. He came up with Nickelbag Bernie, the dealer, and the ad would be, Nickelbag would be at some parking lot, and we would come up with the Dunkin' Donuts on Ashland or whatever, and we would just make up little sites. And we had a partner for a while who was worried. Remember? No one's gonna sue us. We make up some. He's now appearing at a Dunkin' Donuts on Western, and the guy would go, maybe.
So I think the line was, Nickelbag Bernie now working out of the parking lot at the Dunkin' Donuts on Western.
Yeah,
that was, and so our partner was afraid. Was afraid that Dunkin' Donuts was going to sue us.
Yeah.
I thought that it'd be great to get sued by anybody.
But on the other hand, they may build up business. Anyway, Nickelbag Bernie. And that conjures up we're going to get into this. You got an essay I'd really want people to hear you read. But before we do that, the notion of a weed dealer, you've probably been dealing with weed dealers, well, you're most, like you said, going back to the 60s in Gary, throughout the 70s in the city of Chicago. Talk a little bit about weed dealers as just a type, Milo, as opposed to now dispensaries. You've purchased from both.
Can I read a
Go ahead.
couple paragraphs?
Yes.
This is a blog I wrote for the Third City about 8 years ago, I think, or so. But here's just a few paragraphs I'm going to read. It does my heart good to know that there are some places in this nation where a guy can smoke a little weed without worrying about getting his ass tossed in jail. But there's one thing that bothers me about buying marijuana legally. It's the mechanics of actually purchasing it. According to some reports I've read, there are not enough marijuana outlets in Colorado. In Denver, people have to wait in lines, sometimes for more than an hour, just to get their hands on some reefer. I don't like the idea of standing in line for an hour waiting to buy some weed from a clerk working in a store that probably has a name like Mr. Giggles. I'd rather get my marijuana the old-fashioned way from my neighborhood dealer. In the late 70s and early 80s, my connection was a guy named Gary who lived on Sheffield near Wrigley Field. Whenever I'd get down to seeds and stems, I'd stop by Gary's place. Hanging out at Gary's was a pleasant way to waste a couple of hours. There was always good music on the stereo, stimulating conversation, plenty of herb to sample. He enjoyed having people over, was a good host, generous with food and drink. I also met quite a few interesting people and made some lasting friendships while sharing joints in Gary's living room. When I left Gary's place, I usually had a smile on my face. And that, my friends, is the way a civilized person, a real gent, buys his weed. When I was a pothead, I did things the right way. I shopped locally, patronized a small business, and kept my money in the neighborhood.
Yes, very true. I think about that. Shop locally, keeping the money in the neighborhood, taking care of Gary. I think I knew Gary.
I'm sure you met him a few times.
I think I met him at your house.
Every once in a while, he'd make a delivery.
Do you think something's lost?
Not really. I mean, the odds are that when the sale of marijuana is institutionalized, the product will be better. There won't be shortfalls. You won't have to worry about going to your dealer and saying, "Hey, this isn't the same stuff I got last time," that type of thing. So I think in the long run, it's just better to have it institutionalized.
I suppose it's better, although I do kind of I love the concept of nickel bag Bernie. There'll always be nickel bag Bernies among us. Milo, you mentioned.
Well, Benny, I was leaving the dispensary. I use the dispensary on Clark Street, just north of Grace, and I was walking out of there. And there was like a 14, 15-year-old kid stopped me. He was waiting outside the door, and he said, "Mister," and he had a fistful of 5s and 10s and 20s. And he said, "Mister, can you go and get something for me?" And I said, "Oh no, I can't do that. I'm sorry." And then I got kind of angry. I said, "How old are you?" And he didn't say. He just stared at me. And I said, when I was your age, I knew 2 or 3 places I could buy. I said, the kids these days have no ambition. They have
no drive, man.
No innovation.
On the other hand,
innovation.
I gotta give the kid credit. It's like the old days. You stand outside a liquor store when you're 50. Hey, could you buy?
Same concept.
Same concept.
That's so awkward. Whatever happened to networking? You got to network.
Yeah,
You gotta network.
Kids today.
Yeah.
Milo, you were talking about smoking reefer back in Vietnam when you were in Vietnam. Did black and white GIs share the joints, or was that segregated as well?
No, I was in the infantry, and when we were out in the field on patrols and things, there was a sense of brotherhood that you didn't find back in the rear areas. In the rear area, there were even race riots in Vietnam, but out in the field, we shared everything, and. Also, out in the field, we didn't get stoned that often because that was kind of a tricky situation.
Yeah.
But the one thing I do remember is that, and this goes to one of our favorite musicians, Jimi Hendrix. He when people in Vietnam, all music played a big part in everybody's lives, and some of the white guys would listen to country music, the Latino guys would listen to mariachi, black guys would listen to Motown basically, but whenever the black and the white and the Latino people got together to party, it was always Jimi Hendrix.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, no, I'm with you. Jimi Hendrix was the man, and Milo wrote a tribute to Jimi Hendrix that we used to play. We used to run on the 4th of July or thereabouts because it was the ultimate patriotic tribute to the great Jimi Hendrix. I believe is James Marshall Hendrix.
James Marshall Hendrix, formerly of the 101st Airborne.
Yes, but they asked him to leave. Did you know that, Mike?
Well, some people aren't ready for the military.
Yeah,
is that a dishonorable discharge?
No, I don't think. I never heard of this before. They just asked him to leave.
No, there are several types of discharges in the military.
Yeah.
There's an honorable, dishonorable, general, and Jimmy got. I believe he got a general discharge. I'm not sure about it, but I believe. Because a dishonorable, you have to do something, some serious misconduct. Yeah. Jimmy just wasn't a good soldier. And I have a good friend in California. His son all his life wanted to be a soldier, and he joined the military. His father went down with him to see him off and everything. The kid was back in 2 weeks. And the Army kicked him out. He just wasn't fit, wasn't the right type of person to be in the military.
Yeah.
And I think that's the same with Jimi Hendrix.
I think I read somewhere, Milo, that his superior, one of the superiors, said all he wants to do is play the guitar. Which
no shit.
Yeah. Milo, what did they call you? Mentioned that people on the front lines and the people in the rear. What they call
REMS.
REMS. Yeah. What that stand for?
Rear echelon motherfuckers.
Yeah, I always like that. You could swear on a podcast, Melo. All right, we're going to take a break. We come back. We're going to close down the show with a trivia contest. We're going to pit Joshua. We're going to have a millennial versus a baby boomer. Milo versus Joshua. And I'm going to drag Dennis into this as well. This is something that I saw in the New York Times. I said, this is perfect for my show, Milo. It ran on Sunday. And what the rally playlists say about the candidates. So there's all these Democratic candidates running for president of the United States, and before they go on stage at a campaign event, music comes over the loudspeakers. So you got Joseph Biden, Joey B., Elizabeth Warren, Pete Buttigieg, Dennis's favorite candidate. And
I was getting ready to say that's your favorite candidate.
He's not very popular in this show, Milo. Cory Booker, Bernie Sanders, Julian Castro.
Benny, I still miss Comrade Hall.
Yeah, Gary
Gus
Boy.
Hall,
Yeah,
Gus Hall.
Yeah, Gus Hall. Anyway, I think he was running as a communist in 1972. Anyway, so
he didn't do too well.
The only one I could tell you that I did really well with, big surprise here, was Joe Biden's playlist, which is all baby boomer music. But the other ones kind of left me lost. So we're going to close down with a trivia contest, and the winner will get a blue Mustang. We're going to have the blue Mustang delivered to his house. We'll be right back after this.
We're not giving anything away.
The Ben Joravsky Show is supported by Northwestern University's part-time master's program in literature and liberal studies. Students learn from dynamic and diverse faculty as they build advanced skills for critical analysis, writing, and research. Evening classes are held on Northwestern's Evanston and Chicago campuses. The spring quarter application deadline is January 15th. Learn more at sps.northwestern.edu/masters.
Read the Chicago Reader to get up to speed on what's what in Chicago. Culture, food, arts and entertainment, weekly concert listings, weekly event listings, the environment, travel. I can continue, but you get the point. And for all of you Chicago political junkies, raw weekly columns on real city politics from Maya Dukmasova and our very own Ben Joravsky. The Chicago Reader, free to the public in newsstands throughout the city and online at chicagoreader.com. Read it now and be a more informed Chicagoan.
Welcome back to the Ben Joravsky Show. Mr. Joravsky Show. Mr. Joravsky Show. Mr. Joravsky. For the final time this year, I've been getting high with Milo. Guilty.
You know, this show is going to ruin my reputation. You know that.
Mine too. Take us home.
By the way, Milo Samardzija in the studio, not only is he an outstanding writer, I urge everybody to check out Schoolboy and Wasserman Garden, two completely different books. The man has a lot of versatility. Not only is he an excellent blogger, very funny, it's always something witty and funny to say. Not only does he know a lot about reefer, but as you could tell, the man plays a mean piano. That's Milo on the keyboard there, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, wow.
Good God, is he good?
You didn't say anything about my tap dance.
Oh, yeah, he's a great tap dancer, too.
Oh, we didn't tell you about our special bonus interview, tap dance bonus interview.
Yeah, tap dancing with Milo. Anyway, before we close down the show with the great trivia contest, D, you got an update? One last update
Absolutely,
of
I do.
2019.
Absolutely. We're doing our top 10 Chicago and or Illinois stories of 2019. We're going to do our number 6 story here in moments. But I want to remind everybody that 5 through number 1, it's going to be available as a Benny J bonus interview. We'll try and post it tonight, about 7 or 8 o'clock tonight, for everybody to listen to. So make sure you download that at both Chicago Sun-Times and Chicago Reader websites, or wherever else you download your favorite podcasts. We'll recap our the ones that we've went through so far. Like I said, we've made it to number 6. But at number 10 was Governor Pritzker's Fair Tax Initiative getting on the 2020 ballot. Number 9 was that damn alligator in the Humboldt Park Lagoon. Number 8, Confederate Railroad Gate. Number 7, Rahm Emanuel, the ABC pundit. So, yes, people, it doesn't really take a mathematician to know what's next. Coming up next...
Number 6.
That's right.
It's so hard to be here in silence with that music.
It's number 6. And the number 6 story, well, I don't have any audio for it, but Ben Joravsky, our host, as soon as I mention what number 6 is, I know it's going to come right out of your mouth. Oh, D, man, don't get me started.
Yeah.
Because number 6 is the Lincoln Yards development deal.
Woo. Don't get me started.
Well, before you get started, let's recap and talk about it here. Just give me 1 second here, gang. I got to get my script. Ah, boy, we're live, and I'm freaking out. All right, here. All right, well, the Lincoln Yards development deal was passed in April through the city council. Ben, take it from there.
All right. I'm going to focus. Okay, Milo, I'm just going to focus. I talked about earlier how we just passed a budget on a federal level, $768 billion for defense. Basically, a blank check was given to Donald John Trump to spend at any way he wants with your federal tax dollars. At the same time, some of the biggest corporations, some of the wealthiest corporations were given a tax break by Donald John Trump and the Republicans in the Senate, which reduced their tax liability, in some cases to zero. So people are paying the taxes that are going to a blank check for the military. And yet, we don't have money in the city of Chicago, Milo, for teachers. We don't have money for nurses in our public schools. We don't have money for pensions for police officers and firefighters. Somehow or other, we have 700, I can't remember if it's 38 or 68 billion, 736. What difference does it make ultimately? You know?
It's a few billion.
It's a few billion here and there for 1 year, Milo. That's it. 1 year of defense spending. So on a local level, take that to the local level, we had $1.3 billion to underwrite the cost of an upscale development in an already gentrifying area where even I, Milo, could make a good living developing property. Even you, Milo, me and Roger, smoking reefer on the front porch, could make money at Lincoln Yards, okay? So I just could not help myself. All year long, Milo, I was railing and ranting about this. How a city that calls itself a civilized city could claim we don't have enough money to pay pensions for our retired firefighters who put their life on the line every freaking time they run into a burning building, to our retired police officers who put their lives on the line patrolling the streets of Chicago, to retired teachers who teach us stuff, nurses, etc. We don't have enough money for pensions, Milo, but we got $1.3 billion just to give to some rich developer to develop land that you and I could develop, Milo, and make money while high. And I'm just like, it's property tax dollars that come right out of your property tax, folks. Milo, maybe I should go back to smoking marijuana because the world makes no freaking sense. And the older I get, the less sense it makes. We claim we're broke when it comes to teachers and nurses and schools, but we have $736 billion for the military. I don't even know what they're spending the money on, Milo. I don't think they do. And $1.3 billion for Lincoln Yards. So I kind of tied Lincoln Yards to the military expenditure. So
there's probably a lot of people in the military that would agree with that there's excessive spending.
Listen, man, one of the things I saw Trump say, he gave a raise to soldiers.
Well, he's just paying them back for the money he stole from them when they were from that veterans thing. So, it's just breaking even.
That is correct. That's when Donald John Trump, in his infinite wisdom, said, "Hey, I know what to do. I'm going to raise money and use it to help vets." And it's a charity. People donated their money, and he ended up using for political reasons. He bought a portrait of himself. He got caught. Now in New York, he's not allowed to. This is your president, ladies and gentlemen. This is the man you elected president. They said, you can't run a charity anymore, but it's okay. You can't run a charity, but you can run the United States of America.
Wait, weren't we talking about Lincoln Yards?
Oh, I'm sorry. It all comes together, man.
I'm telling you, once he gets going, who knows where the hell it ends up. With a 30,
one of the worst deals.
It is a terrible deal.
Benny's got a plan.
There's a plan. It all comes together.
With a 31-14 vote, the Chicago City Council approved the tax increment financing, aka TIF. Ben, please, just let me finish this. TIF plan that allows Sterling-based $6 billion mixed-use development to move forward, but not before requiring the developer to make additional concessions. Lincoln Yards stands to gain $900 million from its TIF subsidy, according to the Chicago Sun-Times. It's our sixth top story of 2019, the Lincoln Yards development deal. So we have 5 more top stories to go, but we're going to continue our conversation and have a little quiz here with Milo and Joshua. So we're going to have our top 5 available for download. Go subscribe to the Ben Joravsky Show. Go find it. Go hit play. Listen to it. 5 through 1, the top Illinois stories of 2019. Go download it.
All right, very good. Before we give the quiz, which I'm still trying to figure out how I'm going to do the quiz, Joshua, why don't you tell folks about your podcast, how they can follow you, and all that good stuff.
Yeah, thanks. Well, thanks for having me on. It's been a lot of fun these past couple hours. My name is Joshua Smyzer de Leon, born and raised in Chicago, specifically the Humboldt Park neighborhood. Seen a lot of changes in that neighborhood. Seen a lot of changes on La Isla, on the island in Puerto Rico. So this past August, I decided to launch a new project. It's in collaboration with the Puerto Rican Cultural Center on a strip of land in Humboldt Park. It's in between both giant steel Puerto Rican flags. It's called Paseo Boricua. It's Division Street Western area. Got a studio in there. We call it the Paseo Podcast. And the ultimate mission is just to highlight stories by, from, and about the Puerto Rican community. So that might be people here in the diaspora. That might be people on the island. It might be something that's a bit lighter, like talking about Puerto Rican cuisine or Puerto Rican comic book characters and representation. Or we might talk about divestment. Our last episode, we just had the Harvard and Yale students on to talk about that big football game protest they have. In Chicago, we fluctuate between the 3rd and 4th largest Puerto Rican population in the country, in the United States. In fact, the number of Puerto Ricans in the United States outnumbers that we double the size of the number of Puerto Ricans on the island. So how is what's happening in Chicago, especially in Paseo Boricua, an ever-gentrifying neighborhood, how is what we have done since the 70s, how can that serve as a model for other cultural communities? So from my perspective, you got about 23% of people that are listening to podcasts. That's the same amount of people that are on Twitter. So let's get some more representation out there. Let's highlight different things that are specific to certain cultures. Let's create those niche audiences and promote the good things that are happening in our backyards.
And how did you say it's a weekly podcast?
It's a weekly podcast. I don't know how I'm surviving at this point. I work at DePaul University. I teach there. I'm actually finishing up my master's. I'll be done this June, and I'm doing this weekly thing. It's a labor of love, but it's very life-giving.
That's the best kind of labors.
Yes, amen.
And let's give a shout out to your colleague Ivan, who's probably listening.
From San Lorenzo, we're from the same hometown.
Give us the website, the information, where can people find it? People listening right now, take notes.
All right, so here's the notes for y'all. So paseomedia.org, visit there. All the episodes are up there. It's a very simple website. Once I get some more funds, we're going to blow it all out.
Spell that website.
PASEO media.org. Again, that's PASEO media.org. You can also find us on Twitter and Facebook at Paseo Podcast, PASEO Podcast, PASEO Podcast. If you want to follow me on Twitter, I am at JS DeLeon, and DeLeon is spelled DELEON. DELEON.
That's correct. All right, very good.
Thank you, Robert Mueller.
I don't know what happened to my Mueller report.
Yeah.
The Mueller report.
It's over here under my table. I need you focused, all right?
Milo, I have the Mueller report, and
I'll grab it. I'll grab it.
I mean, just show Milo the Mueller. He doesn't believe I actually have a copy of the Mueller.
There
There you go. All right.
That's impressive. I've never actually seen a hard copy of that.
Right? Let's see where the bookmark is. Page 2. Oh wow, that's all you've read.
I'm appalled, but I'm not surprised.
Me either.
All right. So, yeah, I do enjoy the Mueller report. It's good reading. All right. So I saw this in the New York Times, and I just said, I got to bring this on the show. I'm going to keep this around and have fun with this for the next week or so. So, as I said, all the Democratic candidates for president, when they do a rally, they have a playlist, and music plays to fire up their listeners. And the playlist says something about both the presidential candidates, their generation, their preference of music, and who they think will fire up whoever is in the audience. I was looking at this list, and Milo and Joshua and Dennis, and I have to say I was a little embarrassed. I knew almost none of the songs of anyone under the age of 70. Joe Biden's list, I was really good with Joe Biden's list. Elizabeth Warren, she's 70. I was really good with her. Not so good with Dennis's favorite candidate, Mayor Pete.
Love him.
Milo, Pete Buttigieg is not a very big fan. He's too like he should be running in the Republican primary, Milo. Anyway, Pete Buttigieg. I just teased Dennis. He's not really a Pete Buttigieg fan. And I didn't,
And I'm not a doctor. No one calls me White Lightning.
Now, Bernie Sanders' list. Let's start with Bernie Sanders' list, okay? No, let's start with Joey Biden's list. All right, so here's how we're going to do this. Joshua, I'm going to give you a song.
Oh, my gosh. I'm going to suck at this game.
I don't think so. I think you're a lot more knowledgeable than you think.
Okay.
And then tell me if you know the name of the song. And then if you don't, I will turn to Milo, because he's our baby boomer, and he should know the name of the song. So here we go. First song, The Wait by Aretha Franklin. The Wait.
Do I have to sing it, or do I have to know it?
You actually know it?
No, I don't. Well, probably if I heard it played, I'd probably.
Yeah, what's the game here? Did
Yeah,
you
what
say
is-
if you
what-
know the song?
Okay, for instance, I'll give you an example of a song he knows.
I'm bad with names and artists.
High Hopes, Panic at the Disco. Do you know that
That
song?
I do know.
All right, now we
Yes.
get it.
So you can like easily lie and say, yes, I've heard of that.
Yeah, but
I know Aretha Franklin. Does that get 50?
yes,
points?
that gets you
Half off.
10 points. All right, Milo, educate this youngster about The Wait.
I believe that was originally recorded by the band.
That is correct.
Okay.
And
written by Robbie Robertson.
that is correct. And the opening line is, I went down to Nazareth.
I pulled into
Nazareth.
Nazareth. I was feeling about a half
Yeah,
past
10.
Woo,
Yes,
woo.
yes. I know that song. Yeah, that's a great song. Looking
All right,
for
run
a place.
all pre-show ideas by me before we
It's
start.
like looking for a place to hang my
Yeah,
head.
Yeah,
Now, okay. I know
Okay,
that
you do know that
Yeah,
song.
yeah,
Just need a little help. Now, here's the interesting thing. Joe Biden loves that song so much that he has two versions of the song.
All right.
or else he forgot that he had one version already.
What? Now this version, the only other person in the studio who knows this version is Milo. I can guarantee you that. And this is a great version. A saxophone player who died, I want to say in the late 60s, maybe 1970. He died he's been dead a while. King Curtis did the weight. You know that version, Milo?
I don't know the version, but I know who King Curtis
Tell
is.
folks who King Curtis
Well,
is.
he was an East Coast musician and one of the first people that ever hired Jimi Hendrix, I think.
That's
My
okay.
gosh.
That's what marijuana will do for you, ladies and gentlemen.
It's that long-term memory.
It's that long. Milo and I are the only one. King Curtis died, I want to say, in '67. He's a great saxophone player, and yes, I do believe that Jimi Hendrix played with him. All right, so now we'll flip the switch. We'll go to Pete Buttigieg's list, and this is a song. All right, Milo, do you know this song? Actually, Pete Buttigieg has got some old people's song on here. Pete Buttigieg has "Cut to the Feeling." Do you know that song, "Cut to the Feeling"? Milo Samardzija.
No, I don't.
Joshua, do you know?
Who's the artist?
Carly Rae Jepsen.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know this.
I don't know. Dennis?
Hell no. It's not I don't know why you put that on there, but okay.
But it's his song.
Yeah.
Can you sing it for
Not
us?
Call Me Maybe? No, I could not sing it.
What about High Hopes? Can you sing High Hopes?
I could, but I don't want to try.
I've never heard of High Hopes.
I don't like that song.
Milo, have you ever heard of High Hopes?
Yeah, I think Frank Sinatra did.
No, that's a different. That's a boomer High Hopes.
No.
We're talking High Hopes.
Yeah.
Da 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 da. That's the Frank Sinatra version. High Hopes by a group called Panic at the Disco. Have you ever heard that group, Milo?
No.
Not a huge fan.
I believe Milo has.
I may have heard him, but they didn't register.
I believe Milo actually has a Panic at the Disco tattoo on his ankle.
Yeah, he showed that to me the other day. That's right.
On my butt.
On his butt. So yeah, that's the song he plays as his walk-up song for 10 trivia points. Wow. Joshua.
What's up?
Believe it or not, another candidate in the race for president as a Democrat also had High Hopes as a walk-up song. Name that candidate.
In the current race.
In the current race.
And they're no longer in the race.
I did not say that.
Oh, so this might be a trick question.
Currently
High
in the
Hopes.
race.
Okay.
Not the Frank Sinatra High Hopes.
Yeah.
But the Panic at the Disco High Hopes.
Andrew Yang?
Negatory.
Klobuchar. No, sorry.
They don't even have.
I'm gonna throw out all of them.
For what it's worth, they don't. I don't know if this is an editorial comment by the New York Times, but they don't have Andrew Yang or Klobuchar.
Interesting.
Julian Castro, and he got rid of it. I guess someone say, "Hey, boss, Buttigieg just got it. We need our own song." So anyway, High Hopes. I never heard it. All right, here's the Bernie Sanders list. Here we go. The number one, the song that he plays as he comes up on stage. Brooklyn Go Hard. You know that song, Milo?
No.
Dennis?
No.
The rap song?
Yes. Very good.
It's Lil Wayne and Jay-Z.
I will give you credit for half of that.
Hang on, it's Lil Wayne.
No.
Oh, no, it's okay, wait. Brooklyn We Go Hard. It would Jay-Z and Swiss Beats?
Jay-Z and Santa Gold.
Oh, Santa Gold.
Yeah.
Yes.
All
okay.
right. Now, this is a song I've actually seen Milo dance to. That's on the Bernie Sanders. Back in the day, Milo Samardzija, they put this song on, and Milo was like, I got to get up and dance. Disco Inferno. You know that song?
Of course. Disco Inferno. Yeah, of course.
Baby,
Yeah.
Man, you're going to ruin my reputation.
Yeah.
Man, his dancing ruined his reputation.
So far, Milo's got a tattoo on his ass. He sings songs. That's great.
Panic at the Disco Inferno.
Disco infatuation.
All right, so that's the song he plays. And here we go. Runaway.
But you get it, though, right? Burn, baby, burn. Bernie Sanders. I knew he didn't get it. I knew he didn't get it.
Mind blown.
Someone get me the bong on that one. I did not. Right over my head. Milo, did you get it?
No.
Okay.
You got to feel the burn.
You got to feel
All
the
right.
burn. All right, another song in the Bernie Sanders playlist, Runaway, You and I. Joshua, please.
Runaway, You and I.
I've never heard it.
Rap song?
I have no idea. Dennis,
Runaway, You and
know
I.
it?
Who's the artist?
Galantis. I've never heard of Galantis. Anybody in this room heard of Galantis?
The only Runaway I know of is from the late 50s, I think.
Del Shannon.
Del Shannon, yeah.
Run, 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 run away. I think that's on Joe Biden's list. I'm just kidding.
There's a ludicrous song, Run Away.
Yeah. All right. And this song, Milo definitely knows. Milo and I are the only people in this room that know this song, America by Simon and Garfunkel.
Ooh.
It was
I know.
actually, Bernie used that in his campaign ads back in the day. Milo, feel free to sing a snatch.
I know the song, but I refuse to sing it.
Okay. It's a great song. And here we go. Uprising by Muse. Anybody heard that song?
Yeah, isn't that there's like a slow build to it. It's like "We Will Be Victorious," I think is like the lyrics in it. I can't sing it. Sorry.
Oh.
I'm not very helpful at this game.
And then finally, I'll close with this one from Bernie Sanders. I love this song immensely. Let's see if our millennials have ever heard of it.
No.
Power to the People.
Oh, by Public Enemy?
Well, they I think riffed on it. Isn't that what the original Power to the People, young Dennis?
It's funny you say if the millennials can. They tuned out like 20 minutes ago.
This is too old.
John Lennon.
Very good. John Lennon. Power to the
Okay.
All right, and finally, I just go. Two candidates have the same song, "Lovely Day."
Lovely Day.
Yes.
Lovely Day.
You like that song? "A Lovely Day" by Bill Withers, one of the great songs of all time.
That's nice.
Oh
That's a
my
nice
goodness,
one.
Dennis, would you sing it?
Milo, you know the song.
Yes, you do.
I know it.
Lovely day, lovely day. They play it at the bowling
Just
alley
like
a lot. Anyway, Cory Booker has Cory Booker's list is very similar to.
If I'd have known they had such terrible singers on this show, I might have made some other plans.
And
not doing any of these songs
Elizabeth
justice.
Warren.
I think we should name this segment "We're Idiots." We're just singing and not knowing anything.
But we're a lot smarter than that. All right. Anyway, I want to thank
good songs.
Joshua Smizer De Leon for coming on the show. The immortal, the legendary Milo Samardzija for coming on the show. Lisa Solomon was here earlier today, and of course, the man, the myth, the legend, and Milo, as you know, back home in his native Alton, they call him White Lightning. Dr. D, give yourself a raise, take it out of petty cash, have a safe and healthy Happy New Year's, everybody. See you on Thursday.
And remember, you can download previous Ben Joravsky shows and Benny J bonus interviews at both Chicago Sun-Times and Chicago Reader websites, and wherever else you download your favorite podcast. And you really need to download the top 5 Chicago and or Illinois stories. We're going to be recording it as soon as we get done here, and it'll be available tonight at both Chicago Sun-Times, Chicago Reader websites, wherever else you download your favorite podcasts. You know the deal. So check it out. We'll see you next year. It's been a great 2019.
That's correct.